4, 3, 2, 1.
Broadcasting live from the Newsmax studios, this is the Steve Malzberg Show. Be a part of the action by calling toll-free 1-877-Newsmax. That's 1-877-639-7629. Or email Steve at malzbergshow@newsmax.com. Here is Steve Malzberg.
Is the White House concerned that that agreement is falling apart?
Absolutely not. We're not concerned it's falling apart. We're concerned, we are ensuring and making our views known that Syria must abide by its commitments, and that is a view that I believe that they must. I believe that the regime must. We have heard from the Russian government that it is their expectation that the Assad regime will be delivering a substantial portion of its chemical weapons supplies and equipment in the relatively near future. We certainly expect and hope that that's the case.
All right, folks. I don't know what that was. Welcome back to the Steve Malzberg Show. Of course, that was Jay Carney. Jonathan Karl asking the question, and Syria has missed, in fact, a key deadline in handing over chemical weapons. Joining us right now to talk about that and so much more is John Bolton, former U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations, Fox News contributor. Hello, John, Mr. Ambassador.
Hi, Steve. How are you? Glad to be with you.
Almost a slip of the tongue, a familiarity slip of the tongue there. Please excuse me. All right. So, I mean, you know, why am I not surprised, A, that Syria missed a deadline and this empty rhetoric that we hold them responsible for meeting their deadlines? Why do I want to yawn?
Well, you know, it's no surprise at all that Syria is slow-rolling its compliance with actually destroying its chemical weapons. This thing has been playing out ever since August, and they are so far behind their commitment that it seems impossible at this point they'll catch up. And I think that was always Syria's purpose, to drag this out, to buy time, to gain political legitimacy, and that's what they're doing. And I thought what was very interesting about what Jay Carney said is that in defending the continuing vitality of the agreement, he cites the Russians. He says, no, the Russians have told us that, indeed, the Syrians will meet their obligations. I mean, that shows in a nutshell exactly what's wrong with the administration's approach. The Russians are not on our side in this deal. They are supporting the Assad regime. They want to see the Assad regime continue in office. They've aided him considerably over decades, and particularly over the past 3 years of the internal civil war. And yet that's the source, that the go-to country for Jay Carney in defending the Obama administration's policy in Syria.
Yeah, it's very, very sad. Let me let you hear something that James Clapper said last week that contradicts almost everything the administration has been saying about al-Qaeda for months and months. As a matter of fact, for a couple of years, ever since they got Osama bin Laden. Here is Cut 37.
How would you characterize the probability of an al-Qaeda-sponsored or inspired attack against the U.S. homeland today as compared to 2001?
I can't say that the threat is any less. I think that this dispersion and decentralization actually creates a different threat and a harder one to watch and detect. There are some 5 different franchises at least, and in 12 countries that this movement has morphed into.
Lawmakers were told that more than 26,000 extremists are now operating in Syria.
All right, so that talking about al-Qaeda in Syria, but I mean, again, this just flies in the face of the whole storyline put forth by Obama and the administration.
Oh, exactly. Clapper's statement is very significant. Really, you cannot stress enough how significant it is that he says that the threat today is essentially no different from it was on September the 11th in 2001. And in fact, now, because there's no core al-Qaeda that runs like a corporate hierarchy across the entire terrorist network, that it's actually harder to track and detect than it was back then, when we were not successful in tracking and detecting it. So I think it really is an indictment of the Obama administration's policies, and its political spin efforts to convince people that the war on terror was over.
Yeah, Barack Obama, we're talking to Ambassador John Bolton, former U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations, here on the Steve Malzberg Show. The president at the National Prayer Breakfast today invoked the names of two Americans being held, one in North Korea and Pastor Abedini being held in Iran. And it just rang so hollow to me, especially on the Abedini front, where we've been in negotiations with Iran. We gave, according to so many people, and yourself, I'm sure, as I know, yourself included, we gave them so much of what they wanted in these negotiations. We're putting our trust in them foolishly. And, you know, apparently we never demanded the release of Abedini or any of the prisoners Iran is holding, but yet at the National Prayer Breakfast, the president finally, first time I ever heard the name cross his lips, mentions the pastor's name.
Yeah, well, you know, he can get away with that because the media cover for him, and you know, he doesn't want to raise Abu Dini or a number of other Americans being held or other issues with Iran because he's worried that it will affect the negotiations over the nuclear weapons program. And I bet the explanation to Iran when they complain about this is, you know, it was just in a prayer breakfast. It wasn't an official statement. It was just in the prayer breakfast, because he hopes that with a bunch of religious fanatics in Tehran, he can kind of pass it off as his obligatory religious gesture in this country. I mean, really, it is a demonstration that the president is determined to have a deal with Iran on the nuclear program, almost no matter what the cost.
So he's placating the family of the pastor here?
Well, I think he's probably trying to do that, too, and to get them off his back. And to get the American public off his back for not raising the issue enough. I don't think it's going to succeed. I think this is a real telling manifestation of the inadequacy of the president's policies, and I think we should be pounding away on it. It tells you, as you suggested, it tells you the nature of the regime in Tehran when they hold people like Abedini the way they have.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let me ask you about John Kerry. I mean, you and I have talked about this, but it keeps progressing. There's new chapters added to it constantly. You know, Kerry threatening another intifada will take place if Israel doesn't capitulate. You know, constantly getting in a war of words with Israeli officials. And then most recently saying that not one single Israeli has ever been killed from an attack from the West Bank. And the widow of one terrorist victim in particular spoke out, and others are speaking out. And John Kerry on CNN yesterday basically firing back by invoking his own stellar military service record, which I thought he would have known better by now. Here's cut number 45.
And Israel needs to understand, we will always stand by its security needs. But no one should distort what we're doing or saying because they're opposed to the peace process or don't like two states or whatever. And, you know, words, I have to tell you, my friend, I've been, quote, attacked before by people using real bullets, not words. And I am not going to be intimidated. I am not going to stand down with respect to President Obama's commitment to try to find peace in the Middle East.
I got to tell you, to be honest with you, in all honesty, that makes me sick.
Yeah, well, the pomposity index is high. There's no doubt about it.
I like the way you said it better, yeah.
That's nothing new in that department. But the worst part about these Kerry statements about the attacks from the West Bank, about the statement he made in Geneva on the boycotts, divestiture, and sanctioned opponents of Israel, the intifada, the delegitimization, as you mentioned, is he is telling the opponents, not just of Israel, but the opponents of the United States, which are essentially the same thing when it comes to the dispute with the Palestinians, that this is the attitude of the White House and the Secretary of State. It is a green light in many respects, and it's a way, finally, of putting pressure on Israel. It's a very poorly disguised way of putting pressure on Israel, and I suspect the government there will not be intimidated either.
Mr. Ambassador, always great to speak to you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thanks again for having me.
My pleasure. That's Ambassador John Bolton, ladies and gentlemen, former U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations. At the beginning, I almost called him John. I feel like I know him so well. We talk to him so often, and nicest guy in the world, but that's not the proper way to address him, obviously. So I corrected my slip of the tongue. before it totally slipped. All right, folks, when we come back, our panel will join us. Our panel, Rick Unger of Forbes from the left, and, of course, Ron Christie, GOP political consultant from the right. We'll talk about these issues, Israel and the prayer breakfast and the pastor being held in Iran and so much more. Straight ahead on the Steve Malzberg Show, Newsmax TV and radio.
The Steve Malzberg Show.
Attention seniors and baby boomers. A new website has been created just for you. MyBenefits211.com. At MyBenefits211.com, we reveal a weird trick that could help you add $152,000 to your Social Security payouts. For example, did you know how you file for Social Security can dramatically change the amount of money you collect? One simple step could add up to $1,000 to your monthly payouts. And other strategies we found reveal 33 ways for big savings on your health care. At MyBenefits211.com, you will also discover how you could save up to 50% on your groceries, along with 49 other ways to save as much as $50,000 starting today. Newsmax says MyBenefits211.com is a critical resource for anyone over the age of 50. So go to MyBenefits211.com now to find out how you could add extra money to your Social Security checks. That's MyBenefits211.com. MyBenefits211.com.
Judging from everything you hear, you think all cholesterol is bad, but that's not really true. You need a certain amount of cholesterol to maintain good health. The problem is that too much cholesterol in your blood contributes to a plaque, a fatty substance that narrows the coronary arteries that feed blood flow to your heart. Picture your coronary arteries as a 4-lane highway. If one lane becomes blocked, traffic still flows well. 2 lanes, no major problem. But if a 3rd lane becomes blocked, that spells trouble. It's the same way with your coronary arteries. And when plaque slows their blood flow to your heart, this can even cause a heart attack. The good news is that when it comes to cholesterol, lifestyle changes can pay off big time. Even a small reduction in plaque can be like opening up another highway lane. Suddenly, blood flow that was stalled can go forward again. Changing your lifestyle does not have to be hard. And in fact, here are 3 ways to help you start lowering your cholesterol. Snack on nuts. Nuts are probably one of the easiest and tastiest ways to lower cholesterol. Walnuts and almonds are among the best. Bulk up your diet with fiber. Choose whole fruits instead of a fruit juice, brown rice instead of white, and if you're eating a baked potato, be sure to leave the skin on. Choose fish. Fish contains cholesterol-fighting omega-3 fatty acids. I'm Dr. Chauncey Crandall, and thanks for watching this Heart Health Minute. Remember, it's never too late to prevent or reverse heart disease. Right now, I invite you to discover your own risk for heart disease or even a heart attack by taking my quick, free online quiz at www.simplehearttest.com.
Obamacare. More than $1 trillion in new costs. Hidden taxes, fees, big Medicare cuts, doctor shortages. How can we survive?
To know Obamacare is to survive Obamacare. The Obamacare Survival Guide tells you everything you need to know to protect yourself, your family, your business. The Obamacare Survival Guide at bookstores everywhere. Special internet-only offer right now at Obamacare911.com.
What you don't know about Pope Francis will shock you. Bestseller, Francis, a Pope for Our Time, tells the real story. Newsmax says Francis, a Pope for Our Time, rips off the shroud of mystery about this man. Now Newsmax has a special offer for Francis, a Pope for Our Time. Get it for just $9.95 and save $12 off the cover price. Plus, we'll send you a free 1-year subscription to Newsmax magazine. That's a $40 value for free. Order now at popesagenda.com.
Get off the sidelines and be a part of the show. Call Steve toll-free at 1-877-NEWSMAX. That's 1-877-639-7629. Here is Steve Malzberg.
We pray for Pastor Saeed Abedini. He's been held in Iran for more than 18 months, sentenced to 8 years in prison on charges relating to his Christian beliefs. And as we continue to work for his freedom today, again, we call on the Iranian government to release Pastor Abedini so he can return to the loving arms of his wife and children in Idaho.
All right, folks, we are back here on the Steve Malzberg Show, and we are joined by our illustrious panel consisting today, and they'll be here all 3 hours with us, Republican strategist Ron Christie, and from Forbes magazine, Rick Unger. Gentlemen, welcome.
Good to be here.
Pleasure to join you.
All right, thank you, guys. All right, so you just heard the president at the National Prayer Breakfast today. You heard me. I talked about it with John Bolton in the previous segment, and he said basically, you know, not only does it show what kind of country and regime Iran is, but he believes the president is doing this to placate the family of the pastor. They've been after him for a long time to try to obtain and secure the pastor's release. My question is, Rick, you know, this is nice and this is great, and I give the president credit for bringing up his name and others, including the gentleman being held in North Korea. Right. But he held negotiations with the Iranians. Why, you know, did we not secure the release as a goodwill gesture of one of the 3 prisoners that Iran is holding?
Well, first I got to say hello to my buddy Ron Christie, and just to remind him, he still owes me lunch.
Oh, there we go. Now, I might have to come along and eat to make sure
what
that
do you think, Ron? Should we let Malzberg in? 2 conservatives against 1 liberal? Could be an ugly lunch, man. You guys will kill me.
You can hold your own, my friend.
So, look, I have a suspicion about this. I think that in the original negotiation with the Iranians, that was probably not on the table. It was obviously a difficult negotiation. It still is. None of us have any idea where this is going. What I do envision kind of happening, I don't think it was an accident that the president brought it up at this time. I think that's probably a setup. I think as one of the signs of good faith that you're likely to see if these negotiations proceed is that he'll be released. This is what I think is in the cards. And as I say, I don't think the president would have brought it up unless if he didn't think that's what
Ron,
was going to happen.
he also brought up, like I said, the gentleman in North Korea and another prisoner being held, or 2 prisoners being held in Iran. So I hope that Rick is correct, but I have my doubts.
I have my doubts too, as well, Steve. With all due affection to my friend Rick, I think that.
But this is a love fest, isn't it? Lunch, affection, man.
We're changing the world, man. We are all liberals and conservatives who talk to each other.
On the Steve Malzberg Show. Yeah, go ahead.
Don't worry, this is where I pounce on him. So here's the real problem. I mean, this president has been negotiating with regimes that obviously, for reasons that the United States hasn't negotiated with in over 30 years, and I think they're playing the president for a fool, frankly. They are not taking their centrifuges offline. We still don't have any way of verifying they're not going to enrich uranium. And then this president comes out today, he says the right thing, but he does not know how to secure our Americans who are being held hostage. And I just think it's a disgrace that he didn't use the freeing of our hostages and those men and women who are in harm's way as an opening gambit in his negotiations.
Yeah, what about it, Rick? I mean, you're saying that something might happen on the back end, but what about, you know, having him insist, oh, it's too late now, up front that something happened as a goodwill gesture on the part of Iran?
Look, it's easy to get these people released. Just send Bill Clinton in and it all gets done. Look, I don't think it's that simple. And with respect to what Ron thinks this is all going to lead to, he may in fact be right. None of us have any idea where this is going to go. I actually applaud the president for taking a chance. You've got to do something to try and move these relationships in a better direction.
You mean taking a chance with negotiating with Iran, not today at the prayer breakfast.
No, with Iran. Yeah. I know I don't think it's crazy at all for Ron to say this is likely going to go wrong, because it probably has a better chance of going wrong than right. But you don't get anywhere. You don't create a better situation in the world if you don't go for it. Now, with respect to the prisoner, look, the Iranians are not stupid. They are not stupid. We may not like them. We may not like the way they behave. We certainly don't like that they may be building atomic bombs, but they're not stupid. And they know how valuable this person is as a chip when it comes to the president scoring some popularity off of it. I don't think it's an endgame scenario. I actually don't think it's going to be a scenario where if we reach a deal, he'll be part of it. I think he's going to be a chip played as a matter of goodwill in the process going along the deal.
Right, and I think what Ron and I are saying, and Ron, I don't want to put words in your mouth because you got to save room for all that food at lunch. But I think what you and I are saying is it should have been done already as the goodwill, as the chip at the beginning, not at the end.
It's easy to criticize, but you know
we
what?
love to criticize.
I
right,
know,
Ron?
but you know, in real life, sometimes negotiations just aren't that simple.
Ron?
Well, I think obviously the president missed an opportunity to have negotiated the freedom at the front end. I think that this deal is one that the United States, while we sit here and believe that we're negotiating a good faith, I think the Iranians have shown nothing for us to believe that they're going to act in good faith, and having an individual freed would have been that goodwill gesture that I think we're all looking for. I just don't trust the Iranian government.
All right, let's move on to Syria, because I'm getting ready for you to say I just don't trust the Syrian government, which I don't think anybody here does.
Nobody does.
And, of course, today they missed a key deadline, as I discussed with John Bolton. And, you know, not only is he not surprised that Syria missed the deadline, but when he heard Jay Carney answering a question put forth to him by Ed Henry that we played from yesterday's press briefing, he kind of turns to his great ally, the Russians. You know, we're in this with the Russians and us together, and we expect Syria to, you know, it's a sad day when Jay Carney has to stand there and defend our policy by saying, well, you know, the Russians really are heading this up, and we're with them. Pretty sad, right, Ron?
Absolutely, and this is yet another vivid example of what happens when you lead from behind. You know, the president led from behind in Libya. The red line that the president drew around Syria about their using chemical weapons against their own people, they went walking right past that with impunity. And now you have a situation where, of course, the president looks weak on the world stage because he goes to Vladimir Putin, of all people, to bail the United States out. So yet another deadline missed, no surprise, yet another wasted opportunity for leadership by the United States president.
Rick, I mean, the chemical weapons, you know, we were bragging that this is going to be a landmark agreement, and it's going to rid the world of this horrific supply, and they're not living up to it. And what are we going to do about it? There's nothing we can do about it. We've already threatened enough.
No, there is something we can do about it if it continues. But look, you guys are not big on the subtleties of negotiation. I have hired many a lawyer who I didn't think very highly of at all, but they were the right person to get me what I wanted. And I think you have to put it in the context of that when talking about the weird relationship that we have with the Russians when it comes to Syria. There's no getting around the fact that the Russians are far more influential with the Syrian government than we are. So to use them, if we can use them effectively, and I will grant you that we have to underline the word if we can use them effectively, is actually an incredibly clever thing to do if it works out. Look, the Syrians are not going to give this up easily. I promise you they went into it anticipating they would pull every trick in the book. They just wanted to get off the hook of a potential
right,
attack
but
from
the art of
US.
negotiation, I do appreciate it. And when Syria agrees, or your enemy or the other party agrees, you expect them to live up to an agreement, and they're not doing it.
Well, they're not living up to it to the letter of the law, to be sure. John Bolton, I think, has a tendency, if you will, to over-exaggerate
but he didn't come up with that story. He was just weighing in on it. They missed a deadline.
They missed a deadline, but that doesn't mean they haven't been, I mean, I don't want to defend them, but it doesn't mean that they haven't been doing anything all along. It's not like they've been twiddling their thumbs and, oh, wait, today's the deadline. They just did not get to the point where they were supposed to. You can be cynical, which I think is warranted. I'm not saying that you shouldn't be, and say this was a planned missing of the deadline.
Right.
Or you can say they just didn't hit the deadline like they were supposed to.
Ron, when the IRS comes a calling for money, try pulling the Rick Unger defense.
I do it all the time. What do you mean? Why do you think I hire that lawyer I don't like?
Exactly. And look, the whole issue here is that we should have had a containment strategy with Israel, our strongest ally in the region. President Obama snubs Israel at every opportunity to go to the Russians, to have the Russians verify, to have us going through them as a conduit, I think is a terrible geostrategic mistake for the United States. And President Obama, as you pointed out, Steve, what is he going to do now? I mean, the deadline's passed. What is he going to do? Nothing, because he ceded that ground to the Russians.
Seriously, Ron, how well do you think negotiations would have gone if we put Israel in the front line of that with the Syrians or the Iranians?
Let's talk about Israel right now, and then with something else we talked about with Ambassador Bolton. And I want you to hear John Kerry responding to the criticism he's gotten from folks in Israel, most recently members of families who lost loved ones in terror that was perpetrated from the West Bank, after Kerry said no Israelis ever been killed by terror from the West Bank. And here is he brings up his stellar military record. I had the nightmares of the election in '04 all over again. Here is cut number 45.
And Israel needs to understand, we will always stand by its security needs. But no one should distort what we're doing or saying because they're opposed to the peace process or don't like two states or whatever. And, you know, words, I have to tell you, my friend, I've been, quote, attacked before by people using real bullets, not words. And I am not going to be intimidated. I am not going to stand down with respect to President Obama's commitment to try to find peace in the Middle East.
Yes, sir, Sergeant Kerry, or whatever the heck he was. I can't believe he played his military record card, Ron.
What an arrogant, pompous jerk. First of all...
How do you really feel, Ron?
Yeah, well, since we're being polite and this is PG-13, I can't say everything what I think about the Secretary of State. But seriously, this administration has been so reckless of trying to push Israel to make concessions for peace when, of course, they're not making the same concessions with the Palestinians. Secretary of State Kerry, for him to say that he's been under fire and he knows what it's like rather than words, give me a break. The Israelis live on the brink of elimination every day, and the bullying by Obama and the bullying by Kerry is not going to bring any solution to peace in the near
Now, Rick,
term.
of course, I'm sorry, Rick, he was referring, we got a minute left, he was referring to the criticism he's been getting and saying, I've had people shoot at me, so this is nothing. But I kind of agree with what John Bolton and Rick said about, and Ron said about the Secretary.
Well, I think the best solution would be to move John Bolton to a kibbutz right on the border and let it go there. I don't know what it is with John Bolton. He's like,
wait a minute, we're talking about
like
Kerry.
Dr. Strangelove.
We
He
got
won't
less
be
than a
happy
minute. I
until
don't
the
want to give
world's
you a
left.
chance. So, I mean,
Kerry, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know what is going on there. I can't recall a time when Israeli officials would openly say these terrible things about a U.S. Secretary of State. I don't know what it's about. I really don't. I wish I was a fly on the wall when those conversations
Well,
were
and maybe
happening.
he's threatening Israel with an intifada if they don't capitulate, and
Yeah,
with
I
a
doubt
boycott
it, though.
internationally if they don't capitulate. I mean, he's been making all these remarks.
But do you seriously think that's what he's doing? I mean, in the real world, or, you know?
I don't know. Sometimes
I don't
the
think so.
fake world is worse than the real. All right, gentlemen, we'll have you back in the next hour. I thank you very, very much. And when we come back, we'll be joined by Charles Krauthammer, ladies and gentlemen. Lots to talk about with Mr. Krauthammer, who has the audio version of his great new book out now, so we'll talk about that as well. Don't touch that dial. And no lunch yet. Steve Malzberg Show, Newsmax TV and radio. Don't go away.
The Steve Malzberg Show.
It was great. All right, so have a seat.
Obamacare. President Obama's massive health care law is taking effect this year. With over 15,000 pages of regulations, few even know what it means. Now, the all-step guide on how you can protect yourself. Already the New York Times bestseller, every American needs to get the Obamacare Survival Guide and find out about the new taxes, hidden fees, fines, Medicare changes, business rules, and why doctor shortages are likely. Donald Trump says the Obamacare Survival Guide is a must-read for anyone worried about getting good health care for themselves or their employees. So get the Obamacare Survival Guide. It's at bookstores, or get our special offer at Obamacare911.com and you'll save $15. Go now to Obamacare911.com. Obamacare911.com.
Newsmax Magazine is proud to present a special tribute to our 40th president, Ronald Reagan. It's a very special documentary and commemorative issue of Newsmax Magazine celebrating the centennial of President Reagan's birth. First, here's a video clip from the award-winning documentary, Rendezvous with Destiny.
We're in the midst of a springtime of hope for America.
You ain't seen nothing yet.
Impulses of an evil empire.
Tear down this wall.
I believe that together we can keep this rendezvous with destiny.
In the next several minutes, you will learn things about President Ronald Reagan that you've never seen, heard, or read before. Welcome to today's special Newsmax event celebrating the life and legacy of President Reagan. During this historic presentation, we will commemorate President Reagan's storied life. We'll revisit his 2 terms in office and recollect his proudest achievements and greatest challenges. Ronald Reagan's life reads like a fairy tale of success stories. He was an accomplished athlete, an honored veteran, a famous actor, the governor of California, and of course, our nation's 40th president.
He called himself a citizen politician and only entered politics when he warned government was gaining too much power. By then he was age 54, with a successful career behind him. Twice elected President of the United States, Ronald Wilson Reagan was a contradiction to some. Once a Democrat, then a Republican. A champion of smaller government whose own government grew. A fiscal conservative who failed to balance the budget. His critics mistook his affability for weakness, but behind the smile and the charm existed an extraordinary leader with unique skills and bold and revolutionary ideas.
We only had time to share just a few of the top defining moments in Ronald Reagan's presidency, but you'll get to see them all in Rendezvous with Destiny. By the way, the president's close relationship with the Pope is especially fascinating. You'll also learn how dealing with an alcoholic father helped shape Reagan's ability to negotiate. And if you ever wondered what the leader of the free world likes to get for the holidays, well, you'll find that out as well. So let's review today in this free offer. We are sending you a copy of Ronald Reagan, Rendezvous with Destiny, and the collector's limited edition of our issue commemorating the 100th anniversary of President Reagan's birth.
Right now, when you subscribe to Newsmax Magazine, you can own both the DVD and receive the special Reagan 100th Birthday Commemorative Edition. That's $25 in bonus gifts when you subscribe. Go to newsmax.com/.
Where can you find the Steve Malzberg Show? Everywhere. From your smartphone to satellite radio to Newsmax Live TV to Roku, we have you covered. Here is Steve Malzberg.
I am happy. Do I look happy? I am happy because I get to welcome back the one and only Charles Krauthammer, who, I got to tell you, his book, not that it was any surprise, Things That Matter, 3 Decades of Passions, Pastimes, and Politics, just did unbelievably well. And it's now out in an audio version. Charles, welcome back, first of all, and congratulations on the unbelievable, not unbelievable, overwhelming success of the book.
Thanks. That's very kind of you.
And talk about the audio version. I mean, done by you, I presume?
Well, I did. I read about the first half of the book, and then I realized that if I kept going, my larynx would need Tommy John surgery. So I did the better part of Valor, and we got a voice actor, actually very, very good, who's read the second half. So you get the best of both worlds, a trained professional for the second half, and the author himself for the first half.
Excellent. And available at all bookstores, Amazon, the whole thing?
Amazon, online, bookstores, on CD, and put it in your car, and you'll have a companion.
Charles,
many rides.
I wish I had it for the Super Bowl. You know, I would have plugged it into my headset and just forgot about the game.
Yeah, but it would have interrupted the commercials.
There you go. That's true, too. And by the way, I want to get one up on Geraldo here. How about greatest author, one of the greatest authors of all time?
Yeah, I thought that was really a nice touch.
Yes. Well, no, he didn't tell. He didn't say of. He said of the first. He said of the century. But I'm going further. I'm saying all time.
You're going for all time. Yeah, I do think putting me with Dante, Homer. I'm not going to say the Bible because I'll get in big trouble.
Right.
But except for that, I think that's
yes. I happened to hear Geraldo's interview with Charles earlier today.
That's good.
All right. Now, let me we made some news on this show, as we kind of do from time to time. I want you to listen to what Rand Paul told me yesterday about Bill Clinton, and here's cut 44.
Really depicts what's really gross and wrong with, workplace harassment.
Would you call him an unsavory character?
Yeah, I mean a predator, a sexual predator, basically. Repetitive, there's dozens or at least a half a dozen public women who've come forward. Some of them did sue in the job place. I think the Paula Jones suit, Mr. Clinton ended up paying nearly $1 million.
And by the way, I asked him if he was an unsavory character because earlier he had said, what do you do when your husband is an unsavory character? So I followed up by saying, are you calling him an unsavory character? But you take exception and don't think it's good strategy, and Republicans shouldn't go there, correct?
Well, I take exception only on tactical grounds. There's nothing intrinsically wrong with what he said. And I think, that for people to say, oh, you're not supposed to talk about that, I think there's no basis for that whatsoever. I think he has a right to say whatever he wants. And on this issue, these are public issues. The question of sexual harassment, of course, is a live one. We get that coming up over and over again with our public officials. But my problem with this is simply tactical. I don't think it makes a lot of sense for Republicans to get into this kind of argument. And the reason is there are two parts of this. First, I think Republicans have the case to make on the substance of whether the so-called war on women, and that is, which is mostly about abortion. That's what it's all about. And it is very clear that the Democrats are on the wrong side of public opinion on this. And public opinion is overwhelmingly in favor of curtailing, probably abolishing late-term abortions. And then you get people like Wendy Davis, the new superstar for Democrats, who's now running for governor as a result of this 11-hour filibuster. What was she championing? She was killing a bill that was meant to abolish late-term abortions in Texas. I think we fight on the substance of that. I think Americans will be appalled when they learn where Democrats are on the so-called war of women. So that's number one, talk substance. The second part is this. The Republicans tried this. It was 1998. They tried the same arguments. They thought it would work politically, and they went all the way to impeachment, and it was disastrous for Republicans. And that's when the issue was white hot, when the embarrassment of Clinton's lying in the first place and then covering up was right out there for everyone to see. And it still redounded against Republicans. So if it worked against Republicans 15 years ago, what's the logic for people to think that it's actually going to be politically effective now? So I'm very skeptical as a political matter whether this is a good strategy.
Yeah, no, I understand that point, and it's an excellent point. I've just always seen the irony, as I alluded to with Senator Paul yesterday, of the Tampa convention being called by some in the media and some political officials as a convention of rapists because of the unfortunate comment made by one congressman who apologized, when then Bill Clinton is the keynote at the Democratic convention with his history, and it just always struck me as a horrific irony that I wish some Republicans would have alluded to at the time, but no one really has until Paul.
No, I think that's true. And the other irony, I mean, the hypocrisy on the liberal side here, all the feminist groups who swoop in for the kill whenever conservative might stray verbally or rhetorically, when it came to Clinton, I mean, and the revelations about the way he acted came out, they all stood with him.
Sure. Media. But what Huckabee was saying is so true, and what he was saying is the Democrats...
Actually, I was puzzled when I heard it. He was saying, and he was saying it that Democrats believe, not he does, but even if you accept, and I do, you read the text, Democrats, basically, he is saying, always insisting on contraceptions because they believe that the women need the protection of the federal government to be able to control their own libido. Look, I know a lot of liberals. I've never heard one ever say that, and I don't know one who ever thinks that. They don't think in those terms. If they make the case, and I give them the credit for this in terms of sincerity, it's usually because they think there are women who can't afford it, and thus the government ought to provide it. That's the case. It's usually the class argument. It's the classic liberal argument that if you need X because you can't afford it for whatever reason, the government ought to give you X as a freebie. But it's not because they think women's libido is out of control. If anything, that's a view that comes from Victorian times 100 years ago, from other precincts, but it's not a liberal view. So as a statement of fact about what's behind the Democrats wanting the federal government to provide contraceptives, I think Huckabee simply got it wrong. And so it doesn't make a lot of sense. It's kind of a weird statement. If anything, it might be a projection of the views of his side of the aisle, or some people. on his side of the aisle, if anything at all. I won't speculate about that, but all I'd say is it was weird. And we ought to make a list of words which Republicans should never. Why are we talking about libido? We should talk about policy. We talk about policy, we win.
Well, statement on the special report with Brett Baer, I believe, yesterday, and this CBO report and the defense of it, saying, oh, this frees up people. They don't have to work. They could go pursue their real interests or whatever. I think you said that this cuts to the essence of liberalism.
Well, the way Jay Carney, this is really an example of sort of the opportunity society. When conservatives talk about that, they mean you give people the means, the training, the education they need to climb the ladder of American life. And Carney actually said, we give them the opportunity to choose not to work. Well, of course, you have the freedom not to work, but what liberals are saying is we're giving you the freedom to choose not to work because we're going to then give you the money of the people who do work, and you won't have to work. And this is our idea of opportunity. Look, this is the same as the attempt of Democrats and liberals to undo the great welfare reform of 1996. What that did is it said if you're not looking for work or in training, if you don't try to get work or do some kind of work, you don't get welfare. Unless you're disabled and old, etc. Of course, everybody understands that. But the idea was you want welfare, you want a subsidy, you want to choose not to if you choose not to work, you're not going to get welfare.
Right.
We're not going to give you the money. But if you're looking for work, you're trying to work, you're trying to help yourself, or you're simply unable to, we will give you welfare. So what they're saying in the liberal argument today is we're giving you the opportunity to choose not to work, we will subsidize you, which is exactly the same thing that they're trying to do, the Obama administration, to undo the 96 welfare reform. They want to kick away and take away and weaken the work requirements. We're a society that believes that we should help people who simply cannot work for whatever reason they are unable to. They're mentally disabled, physically disabled, or old or whatever. Or if you want to get our help and our subsidy, then you got to be trying to work or doing some work as a way to show that you are not a parasite on the rest of society.
Yeah, no, very, very well put, as usual. Just one thing, how disappointed were you that the Super Bowl turned out the way it did?
Well, I'm a baseball fan. So to me, the meaning of the Super Bowl is 10 days until pitchers and catchers.
I was going to bring that up. I was going to bring up how many days to pitchers and catchers.
Oh, I'm counting the hours now.
I would imagine so.
A week from today for my Nationals, so. And I can smell the popcorn in the ballpark from where I am right now.
Well, the snow is preventing me from smelling anything, unfortunately. But listen, Charles, always matter. And, of course, people, if you haven't gotten the book itself, please do. You will not be sorry. Thank you, Charles.
Great.
The All-Star panel. We got to make, let's see, we can make it the Malzbergs, Marvel. All right. I don't know what that was, but I knew something was coming, and it came. When we come back, a true American hero who endured torture at the hands of the North Koreans, and a brand new book about his plight and the plight of 10 others so bad in the eyes of the North Koreans, they were kicked out of the Hanoi Hilton and put into what they refer to as Alcatraz. Don't miss it. Steve Malzberg Show, Newsmax TV and radio.
The Steve Malzberg Show.
Meet John and Nancy. Like many people, John and Nancy have spent their whole lives working hard, saving their money and investing wisely, knowing that it would pay off in the end. But the reality is, today's world is not the same as it was. John and Nancy's stocks have taken them on a serious roller coaster ride, and it's all but destroyed their retirement funds. Their house is not even close to being worth what they paid, and to boot, their middle-class paychecks no longer cover their costs. All that hard work and smart investing has gotten them nowhere. In fact, they are no longer thinking about when they will retire, they're wondering if they'll retire. Then one day, John and Nancy heard about a man named Tom Hutchison, a veteran of Wall Street for over 2 decades. Tom noticed that the wealthy invested differently than normal people, and their methods seemed to be a secret they didn't want to share. So Tom left his job, compiled the strategies, and published them in the controversial book, Powerful Secrets to Achieve Superior Returns. John and Nancy immediately picked up a copy, began investing, and never looked back. Thanks to Powerful Secrets, John and Nancy now have investments that pay up to 20% a year. They learned about unique tax-advantaged investments, and their favorite chapter revealed a strategy that anyone can use to turn $50,000 into $1 million. Now, John and Nancy have control of their financial future in this new reality, and they have peace of mind about their investments that they never had before. Best of all, they are back on track to a secure retirement. To get your free copy of the book, Powerful Secrets to Achieve Superior Returns, simply visit www.myfinancialage.org.
Meet Jim. Like many of us, Jim enjoys a busy life. Between work, family, and friends, his days zip along. And Jim has the energy to tackle almost anything. But lately, Jim's get up and go has literally up and down to go to the bathroom so many times he can barely wake up in the morning. His prostate concerns have him sad, tired, and worried. Activities that were once enjoyable now his prostate concerns have him sad, tired, and worried. Activities that were once enjoyable now seem like a chore for Jim. His golf game is at the mercy of his bathroom schedule. Family outings are planned around it too. Jim even has difficulty going to the bathroom. He's tried so many prostate remedies he can't keep them straight, and nothing ever seems to help. Then Jim found out about Prostate Revive, the all-natural dietary supplement specifically formulated for men, targeted towards improving and sustaining normal prostate function. Prostate Revive includes 15 super ingredients never combined before, including saw palmetto extract, beta-cytosterol, pomegranate fruit extract, selenium, and other high-quality nutrients. These targeted and all-natural ingredients promote healthy urinary flow and optimal prostate health. And the best part is, Prostate Revive was developed by a renowned medical doctor. Dr. David Brownstein personally formulated Prostate Revive with one goal in mind, to promote a healthy prostate gland. Thanks to Prostate Revive, Jim's got his life back. He gets a full night's sleep every night, and his friends and his wife can't believe he's the same guy. He has his old energy back, and no one has to wait for him. He doesn't even think about his prostate concerns anymore. Visit MedicSelect.com to take back your nights and improve your quality of life with Prostate Revive.
Attention seniors and baby boomers. A new website has been created just for you. MyBenefits211.com. At MyBenefits211.com, we reveal a weird trick that could help you add $152,000 to your Social Security payouts. For example, did you know how you file for Social Security can dramatically change the amount of money you collect? One simple step could add up to $1,000 to your monthly payouts. And other strategies we found reveal 33 ways for big savings on your health care. At MyBenefits211.com, you will also discover how you could save up to 50% on your groceries, along with 49 other ways to save as much as $50,000 starting today. Newsmax says MyBenefits211.com is a critical resource for anyone over the age of 50. So go to MyBenefits211.com now to find out how you could add extra money to your Social Security checks. That's MyBenefits211.com. MyBenefits211.com.
Get off the sidelines and be a part of the show. Call Steve toll-free at 1-877-NEWSMAX. That's 1-877-639-7629. Here is Steve Malzberg.
All right, folks, welcome back. You've all heard of the Hanoi Hilton. Well, the man who coined that phrase, author Alvin Townley, has written a new book called Defiant. The POWs who endured Vietnam's most infamous prison, the women who fought for them, and the one who never returned. Now, picture this. Within the Hanoi Hilton, there are 11 of our U.S. heroes held prisoner who they considered, the North Vietnamese considered so dangerous and so bad that they transferred them out to a separate prison, a separate part, which they then dubbed Alcatraz. And we have one of the survivors of Alcatraz along with Alvin, and he is Rear Admiral Robert Schumacher. Admiral, welcome.
Thank you much. Nice to be with you.
Well, gentlemen, and welcome to you, Alvin, too. Appreciate you both being here. Alvin, the dumbest question I could ask, but the only question I could ask right off the bat is, how on earth did you survive, did the guys survive all those years under those conditions? I mean, I cannot fathom it.
I couldn't either. And, let me tell you, Steve, this is probably the most amazing story that I've ever uncovered. And obviously I wrote a book about it. I'm a little biased, but really beyond me, the guys are what made the story, and the way they were able to survive that with each other.
And welcome to you, Alvin, too. Appreciate you both being here. Alvin, the dumbest question I could ask, but the only question I could ask right off the bat is, how on earth did you survive, did the guys survive all those years under those conditions? I mean, I cannot fathom it.
I couldn't either. And, let me tell you, Steve, this is probably the most amazing story that I've ever uncovered. And obviously I wrote a book about it. I'm a little biased, but really beyond me, the guys are what made the story, and the way they were able to survive that with each other, the amount of brotherhood they fell back on, the resilience they showed, and the dedication to their country, to their honor, and to each other and their families back home was just amazing. And I could not believe that no one had never told the story before. So I wanted to set that right.
Add in just a little bit. The reason we survived was because we were Americans. We tasted freedom, and we knew what it was all about, and that's what got us out of there.
And how Admiral, I have to always have trouble with that word. Were you guys, were you 11 singled out?
Well, we were singled out because the Vietnamese thought that we were the leaders of the 591 that eventually showed up there. But they missed a few good guys along the way. There was a guy named Robbie Reisner, Bud Day, both of those just recently passed away, and John McCain. But anyway, Alvin's book, I ought to point out these 11 individuals have no financial interest in the book at all. But it's a pretty good read, I think. And even though it happened long, long ago, we're celebrating our 40th year of freedom this year. And half your population wasn't even born then. But I think we developed some coping mechanisms that a current reader of the book would appreciate and benefit from.
Such as, give me one key coping mechanism.
Well, when you're down and out, the worst thing you can do is crawl off in the corner and isolate yourself. And that's what the Vietnamese tried to do to us. They put us in. I was there for 8 years, and 3 of those years were in solitary confinement. And their whole philosophy was that they felt they could control our thoughts and minds better if we were held in isolation and incommunicado. So, to your current people that might be suffering from stress of some sort, make sure you communicate. We developed our own means of communication, which you may want to get into.
And yeah, I do. And Alvin, the women who fought for them, talk about them.
So, of the 11 guys, 9 were married when they went over there, and several of the wives found out right away that the Vietnamese had captured their husbands. 3 of the wives didn't find out their husbands were dead or alive for 4 years. And it was a terrible situation where the U.S. government was not really encouraging or making the North Vietnamese follow the Geneva Convention. And so the women, after a couple years, the wives realized the only way to get their men home was going to be if they took charge and they took action and they broke the government's policy against speaking out. So really, this is one of the great women's movements of our time and of history. The women came together, brought the Vietnamese transgressions and their disregard for the Geneva Conventions to the world's attention, and within a couple months of that happening, the Vietnamese changed their policies. They stopped torturing our prisoners. They started feeding them better, and I think as a large consequence to what the women did, these men came home in February of 1973. And
Admiral, talk about, I understand that one of the prisoners is a current U.S. Congressman, and you actually taught him French through code while in prison?
You bet. My wife is French-Canadian, and I'd studied French at the Naval Academy where I went to school. But of these 11 people, one of them became a vice presidential candidate. One was a senator from Alabama, and the person you're referring to is the Congressman Sam Johnson from Texas. And he'd never studied language before, so I would give him 5 words of French a day. But I ought to point out that even though we lived side by side, I never got more than 10 feet away from him in 3 years' time. I never saw him. Yeah, but we would communicate by tapping on the wall. So I would give him 5 words of French a day, have to amplify it and say, this rhymes with so-and-so, some English word. And after 3 years, I finally got to meet him, and he could speak French better than I could, and I've never quite figured out
wow.
that happened.
Listen, folks, it's all in the book, Defiant, by Alvin Townley, the POWs who endured Vietnam's most infamous prison, the women who fought for them, and the one who never returned. And I thank you, Alvin, and I thank you, Rear Admiral Robert Schumacher, a true American hero. Thank you both.
Hey, thanks, Steve. It was a pleasure.
All right, thank you. All right, folks, hour number 1 of the Steve Malzberg Show is done. In the next hour, among our guests will be Pat Buchanan, Larry Klayman, and Kendall Coffey on the Steve Malzberg Show, Newsmax TV and radio.
The Steve Malzberg Show.
Attention seniors and baby boomers. A new website has been created just for you, mybenefits211.com. At mybenefits211.com, we reveal a weird trick that could help you add $152,000 to your Social Security payouts. For example, did you know how you file for Social Security can dramatically change the amount of money you collect? One simple step could add up to $1,000 to your monthly payouts. And other strategies we found reveal 33 ways for big savings on your health care. At mybenefits211.com, you will also discover how you could save up to 50% on your groceries, along with 49 other ways to save as much as $50,000 starting today. Newsmax says mybenefits211.com is a critical resource for anyone over the age of 50. So go to mybenefits211.com now to find out how you could add extra money to your Social Security checks. That's mybenefits211.com. mybenefits211.com.
What you don't know about Pope Francis will shock you. Bestseller, Francis, A Pope for Our Time, tells the real story. Newsmax says Francis, A Pope for Our Time, rips off the shroud of mystery about this man. Now Newsmax has a special offer for Francis, A Pope for Our Time. Get it for just $9.95 and save $12 off the cover price. Plus,
hi, it's Steve Malzberg, and coming up on this hour of the Steve Malzberg Show, Pat Buchanan will be here. Among other things, we'll talk about the fact that Barack Obama at the National Prayer Breakfast today talked about two of our prisoners, one in North Korea and one in Iran. Well, why didn't he talk about them to Iran and North Korea? We'll talk about that with Pat. Kendall Coffey and I go spinning the law at the bottom of the hour. Larry Klayman wants the NSA case to wind up at the U.S. Supreme Court. He will be here. And then the panel, Ron Christie and Rick Unger. All that and more straight ahead on this hour of the Steve Malzberg Show.
5, 4, 3, 2, broadcasting live from the Newsmax studios. This is the Steve Malzberg Show. Be a part of the action by calling toll-free 1-877-NEWSMAX. That's 1-877-639-7629. Or email Steve at malzbergshow@newsmax.com. Here is Steve Malzberg.
All right, folks, so welcome aboard. Glad you are out there. Pat Buchanan coming up in just a few minutes, as mentioned. I want to get to some news of the day here, and that is that the Senate has failed to pass the unemployment extension bill. Remember that? It seems like it was ages and ages ago. But a Democratic proposal to continue long-term unemployment did not get the 60 votes needed to clear a second procedural hurdle. Despite support from some Republicans, it was defeated 58-40. Like I said, it needed 60. 4 Republicans voted with Democrats in favor of the measure that would have extended for 3 more months benefits that expired in December. So I'm sure the Democrats are going to try to demagogue that one. What time is it? Momentarily, if they haven't started already. Also, and this could be good news, I hope, there's a report out that John Boehner has said, and he has said, that he's putting the brakes on immigration reform right now. He said that it'll be difficult to move a bill in this climate. And that, to many, signals that the climate he's talking about is distrust of the other side, specifically distrust of Barack Obama. Now, you would have to figure that if you're going to talk about border security and enforcement of the law being the #1 primary concern of the Republicans, if you're John Boehner, when you have a president who has told ICE, don't deport this one, don't deport those people who do this, don't deport those people who do that, and has never taken security fences along the border seriously at all. So why would anybody think that going forward things would be any different? And I think that's a very good question. Very good question to ask, and I'm glad that it is in fact being asked. There's also a report out that Barack Obama is ready to lay low when it comes to campaigning for members of the Senate who are seeking re-election in November, and, of course, Democratic members of the House. I don't think he's going to be getting too many calls, notwithstanding Nancy Pelosi and Debbie Wasserman Schultz and others who claim that they're going to run on Obamacare, baby. I just don't see it happening. So those are 3 stories that are making news right now. Joining us now to talk about those stories and, so much more is our friend Pat Buchanan, former presidential candidate Pat Buchanan, author, and you see him all over the place, including on Fox News. Hello, Pat.
How are you, Steve?
Good. Always good to talk to you. So what do you make of John Boehner backing off, apparently, on what some of us, or like me, feared was a fait accompli on seeking immigration reform?
You know, I'm not terribly surprised. When they got down to the Eastern Shore, there was a firestorm that had already broken out over news that they were going to go for a compromise or some kind of capitulation on an amnesty. And I think that firestorm was reflected in the responses of a lot of grassroots Republican conservatives down there on the Eastern Shore. And I think the vast majority of the members down there in the caucus rose up or indicated their opposition. So what Boehner was looking at was a major civil war in his party, in which he might himself be defeated and lose his speaker. Discretion was the better part of valor, and simply put it off. I think they did the right thing, and I think it also proves that standing up and raising Cain early in these battles is the best way to go.
Yeah, and you think that this is going to be long-lasting, or
I think it'll last through this year, maybe.
Good.
And they'll come back again.
Yeah, well, yeah, they always come back, but good. And talking about the present climate, I took it to mean the climate with the other side, but I guess he was in part at least referring to, as you alluded to, the firestorm within his own party, because there has been very vehement objections, notwithstanding Paul Ryan and the other members of the leadership working behind the scenes to try to get this thing together.
But that tells you something, doesn't it, Steve? The other side is working behind the scenes, and we're raising Cain publicly.
Right.
And so I think that's what happened. But what I saw coming out of that meeting on the Eastern Shore, when did he begin? Wednesday? By Thursday and Friday, you were getting all kinds of signals that hold off, we're not moving forward, leave us alone, that we have not decided this finally. And I didn't see any strong, powerful statements that, we've got to move ahead and legalize the folks who are here. I didn't see anything like that coming out of there. And if they're unwilling to stand up and say that, I felt that they would capitulate, and which is what they did.
So I was looking at my watch before, Pat, saying, okay, when are the Democrats going to start demagoguing on that issue? And, of course, they have another issue now, as the Senate fell 2 votes short of the 60-vote threshold to move forward with this unemployment benefit extension. So that's not going to be happening. I'm surprised I haven't seen Debbie Wasserman Schultz's face or Harry Reid's face plastered all over the network so far.
I think they will fight on that one in the fall. I think they will, because the unemployment thing has an appeal to an awful lot of people, even an awful lot of people who aren't deeply involved in politics. They say, 5 more weeks unemployment benefits? I'm not so much against that. I think you'll see much more of that in the fall, and the attacks on the Republicans for the position on immigration will be pretty much confined to those districts where that is a burning issue, and there aren't that many of them.
Yesterday we had, 2 days ago, we had that CBO report. And then we had immediate reaction from both sides. The report that said over 2 million jobs will go bye-bye, or 2 million people will leave the workforce, I should say, in the coming years because of Obamacare, and the government will subsidize them, and they'll choose to be subsidized and not have to work to get the subsidies, so they'll just quit and be able to pursue the endeavors they really want to do. And then, and Democrats said it was a good thing, Republicans said it was a bad thing, and the Democrats said that it was being misconstrued and misinterpreted by Republicans. Then you had the head of the CBO yesterday come out and say exactly what the Republicans had been saying about the report, because that's exactly what it will do. It will take away the incentive from over 2 million people to work, because they're going to get handed this health care on a silver platter, with you and me paying for it right down the line.
This goes right to the heart of the great quarrel between the welfare state champions and those who believe in individual initiative. And it is really the heart of the conflict. What the CBO has said is, basically, the Republicans are correct. If you give folks a benefit that they don't have to work for, and a very valuable benefit, a lot of them will decide, well, why work? Why not take the summer off and go to the beach and write that novel I've always been thinking of and have a good time? Or why not become a lifeguard down there and have a good life for the summer and go back to work when my unemployment benefits run out, or something like that? This is the great battle, Steve. It goes all the way back to the early New Deal, all the way back before that. I think it was St. Paul. He who does not work, neither shall he eat. That is hardcore conservatism. And so we've moved up through history, all the way through the New Deal, of course. Even FDR, he has a great quote in 1935 where he said, this relief, what he meant welfare, is a narcotic. It's a subtle destroyer of the human spirit. We must and shall get out of this business of welfare. And what he meant was, what everybody believed then is, look, we ought to help people who are flat broke and out in a Hooverville or something, and give them food to eat if they don't have it, but we don't want to provide so much of an incentive to people that they don't even want to go back to work because they got it so good. And now, look at what we got now, Steve. You get food stamps, you get free food, you get free lunches for the kids and breakfasts and dinners at school, free education, free health care, Medicaid, and now Obamacare. You get housing subsidies, all these things. I mean, it's no surprise a lot of folks say, why do I want to give up all this good stuff, and go work out in the street digging holes in a construction job?
Yeah, no, I love when Nancy Pelosi changes the founders' words in some of her most precious documents to include life, liberty, health. And she puts health in there, and she does it with a straight face. And Jon Stewart, Jon Stewart,
food and pleasure.
Yes, life, food, and pleasure. And Jon Stewart said to her, "What happened to the website? Why couldn't you get?" And she said, "Well, I don't know. It's not my job." And he turned to her and said, "Oh, well, then we'll get the minority leader of the House and ask her." Oh, that's you. I mean, it's just insane.
Well, Nancy Pelosi, incidentally, she's a contemporary of mine. She went to Trinity over there in D.C. the same time I was at Georgetown, But, and when I see her on television, she's obviously got to be capable. But I say to myself, she's a nice lady, but how is this lady the leader of the opposition party?
Well, it speaks to the opposition party, and I don't know exactly what it says about it. All right, let's turn our attention, Pat. I'm talking to Pat Buchanan here, former presidential candidate, author, all the administrations he worked in. You see him all over, McLaughlin Group, the whole thing, and we're privileged to have him on. Let me ask you about, we're talking about foreign affairs here, and I know that you've been talking about a little bit anyway about the Ukraine. Explain to us what's going on in Ukraine and why it matters.
Well, what's going on is that Ukraine's a deeply divided country. Part of it, frankly, in the West is Catholic, and it was part of it was even tied to the Habsburg Empire rather than the Russian Empire. And it's gone sort of in its western parts back and forth between various empires. Its eastern parts are very Russified, Russian language. There's 8 million ethnic Russians in the eastern part of Ukraine, and there's a real divide inside the country of whether they want to associate with sort of the Russian Customs Union, which is a Russian led common market, or the European Union. And this fellow Yanukovych, he was going to go with the EU, and then he just shifted and decided to go with Russia when Putin made him an offer of $15 billion to cover his present debts and cheap oil and gas. And so he moved with them, and that brought the demonstrators who wanted to go out go with the West, go with the EU, out into the streets. Now, in my view, this is not America's quarrel. It's between the EU and the Russians, and the Ukrainians are the ones who should decide. But I'll tell you what's happened is there's problems on both sides. Some of the folks in the street, they've got the attention of Western media, and they got the attention of McCain and folks like that who came into the square. And they are moving increasingly toward confrontation and violence to produce martyrs, which it did. And Yanukovych hasn't handled it extremely well. But my view is this is really not America's quarrel, and I think we should stay out of it. And as for the EU, there are people in Great Britain, the United Kingdom Independence Party, want to get out of the EU. Marine Le Pen's party in France wants out of the EU. These battles inside these countries aren't America's fights. And why do we have to get ourselves involved in every quarrel on earth? This mindless interventionism, frankly, has gotten this country in terrible trouble. And what I'm writing about today is I think we ought to now, once we won the Cold War, which was a different situation, get back to the foreign policy of the Founding Fathers, which is stop interfering in other countries' quarrels and stop sending our troops to fight other countries' wars.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of people who would agree with that, Pat, certainly, especially when you look at where we are right now, and who even knows what our foreign policy is.
See, that's why we need... look, I was as much a Cold Warrior as John McCain and any of those folks. But when the Soviet Union collapsed and broke apart, and the Soviet Empire collapsed and broke apart, and all these countries broke free, you said, look, we've been carrying the hod for the whole world, defending it during this great epic struggle that is now over. Now we ought to start looking out for America first.
All right, Pat, always great to talk to you, sir. Thank you very much.
Take it easy.
Take care.
Bye.
Pat Buchanan, ladies and gentlemen. Here on the Steve Malzberg Show. I can't help it whenever I think of Ukraine. What's going on there is very serious. So I am going to lighten the moment a little bit so nobody get offended. I'm not trying to offend anybody, but, because everything to me comes back to Seinfeld for some cockamamie reason. So, when Kramer and Newman are playing their world domination game, and they don't trust each other. They take the board on the subway, and they're playing it on the subway, and then they just hold it, and they're rolling the dice, and they're playing, and he says, I just took Ukraine. He says, Ukraine is weak. And there's a Ukrainian standing up on the train. He comes over, he says, you say Ukraine is weak? Ukraine no weak. And he busts the board with his fist. Very funny. I understand the seriousness of what's going on now, but I just thought I would put a little levity in, a little levity. Never hurt anybody, I guess. Anyway, all right, when we come back, the panel joins us once again. Rick Unger from the left, from Forbes magazine, and we'll talk to Ron Christie from the right, from Christie Strategies and Republican Strategist is he. So we'll be looking forward to that. We're going to discuss, ask those guys to comment on what Pat Buchanan has just said about the immigration reform that apparently is not going through, the unemployment bill that did not make it through the Senate, and maybe even Ukraine, which is not weak, on the Steve Malzberg Show, Newsmax TV and radio.
Attention seniors and baby boomers. A new website has been created just for you. MyBenefits211.com. At MyBenefits211.com, we reveal a weird trick that could help you add $152,000 to your Social Security payouts. For example, did you know how you file for Social Security can dramatically change the amount of money you collect? One simple step could add up to $1,000 to your monthly payouts. And other strategies we found reveal 33 ways for big savings on your health care. At MyBenefits211.com, you will also discover how you could save up to 50% on your groceries, along with 49 other ways to save as much as $50,000 starting today. Newsmax says MyBenefits211.com is a critical resource for anyone over the age of 50. So go to MyBenefits211.com now to find out how you could add extra money to your Social Security checks. That's MyBenefits211.com. MyBenefits211.com.
We're in the midst of an obesity epidemic, and I'm not surprised. The statistics on obesity mirror an increasing trend of eating out or ordering in. In fact, some people dine out every night, but eating in restaurants is one of the biggest enemies of your heart. When you're in a restaurant, you don't really know what you're getting, and the calorie counts of many restaurant dishes are astronomical. In fact, some single dishes contain more calories than we should eat in an entire day. Eating in fast food restaurants is even worse. A diet of hamburgers, French fries, and shakes constitutes a fast lane to the emergency room. If you really want to help your heart, get in the habit of cooking simple meals at home. Here are 3 easy tips that will make your food taste better than even the best restaurant. Choose the best fruit in season. Your local farmer's market is a great place to start. It will probably still cost less than that pie you were thinking of buying. Get in the habit of using fresh herbs. You can use them in egg white omelets or dust them on the fish you grill or bake. And for a light dessert, choose a square or 2 of dark chocolate that you and your spouse can enjoy. There are lots of ways to make your heart healthy, but there are also lots of ways to damage it. That's why I wrote Fix It, Dr. Crandall's 90-day program. In it, I'll tell you how to kickstart your metabolism every day, how to pick the best diet for you, how to stop hunger from sabotaging your diet, the 7 superfoods for your heart. I'm Dr. Chauncey Crandall, and thanks for watching this Heart Health Minute.
Obamacare, more than $1 trillion in new costs, hidden taxes, fees, big Medicare cuts, doctor shortages. How can we survive?
To know Obamacare is to survive Obamacare. The Obamacare Survival Guide tells you everything you need to know to protect yourself, your family, your business. The Obamacare Survival Guide at bookstores everywhere. Special internet-only offer right now at Obamacare911.com.
What you don't know about Pope Francis will shock you. Bestseller, Francis, A Pope for Our Time, tells the real story. Newsmax says Francis, A Pope for Our Time, rips off the shroud of mystery about this man. Now Newsmax has a special offer for Francis, A Pope for Our Time. Get it for just $9.95 and save $12 off the cover price. Plus, we'll send you a free one-year subscription to Newsmax magazine. That's a $40 value for free. Order now at popesagenda.com.
Breaking news and breaking hearts. Aww. This is the Steve Malzberg Show.
Folks, welcome back. Steve Malzberg Show. Time for the panel. And while we await the arrival of our friend Ron Christie,
I think I scared him off. What do you think?
Yeah, well, Rick Unger, you did say insist that he buy you that
lunch.
That
was the problem. That was the problem.
And now that he knows he has the lunch, he's not here. Yeah, so I don't know. Unless he's coming down in person with the lunch on a silver platter. But
the lengths he'll go to avoid having lunch.
Anyway, Rick Unger joins us from Forbes. And okay, so let's talk about some of the things that Pat Buchanan had to say on various issues when talking about the fact that John Boehner has backed off immigration reform today, saying that it's going to be difficult to move a bill in this climate. He said that he was referring to a twofold situation. One, trusting the other side, trusting Obama to follow through on any new law that was passed when he's not enforcing the old laws when it comes to security, but also, as he put it, a firestorm within his own party, which developed in earnest at the retreat last week when the Republicans got together and were discussing this.
Yeah, it's you don't have to be a political scientist to understand what's going on here. It's certainly in vogue to blame Obama for everything, but the reality is Republicans are very nervous about having to run this fall on immigration. And from a political point of view, I understand it completely. I understand why they're concerned about it. Not the best thing for them to do in an election year, and I don't think they'll do it. I didn't think they would do it before. I think the Speaker made it very clear today that it's just not happening. I think the Speaker made it very clear today that it's just not happening this year.
And you know, it's something to me I never understood, because to me it's lose, 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 lose now, lose tomorrow, and lose 10 years from now. Because no matter how far they go in immigration, they'll never be liked by the media or portrayed as oh, look, the Republicans did this. What the media and the Democrats will say the day after a bill is signed is, oh, look, they didn't give you that, they didn't give you this because they don't like Hispanics, they're mean, they're dead. And so no matter how much they give, they can't win.
Well, actually, I don't know that I agree. I think they can win. You know, I think with Hispanics, there is a natural cultural tendency to favor more conservative politics. The thing that seems to be standing in the way of the Republican Party kind of either bringing them to the party or certainly bringing a larger share of them to the party is their inability to face up to immigration. This is a threshold issue. I think if they can resolve that, you're going to see a very different balance in the demographics of politics going forward.
Well, I'd like to believe that, but I think that...
Well, I'd like not to believe
I know,
it, but I think
you,
it's real.
But I think the fact is that, you know, as they polled Hispanics who came out of the booth in 2012, immigration reform was like 5 or 6 on their list of priorities on what they were voting on when they voted for Obama, which I don't understand. I think if the conservatives could get their message across about education, family values, you know, even marriage and life issues, and you know, and jobs and ethics and all that kind of stuff is. Again, I'm not generalizing, but is what the Hispanic community in general, you know, for the most part believes in.
They do care about that. You know, it's that kind of a poll is a really weird poll because there are certain issues. If you're a Hispanic, the last thing you want to do is take a position of all I care about is immigration. And so I wasn't shocked at all when I saw those polls. You know, Hispanics are Americans. They share the same issues that other Americans share. But you know, if you have a conversation with Hispanics as opposed to just catching them in a poll coming out of a voter's booth, they will tell you that this is what's and they never refer to it as themselves interesting. They don't say, I might become a Republican if they could resolve immigration. They'll say that the community might go more in that direction if immigration were to get worked out. So it's one of those odd issues. You know, I always say it's like you ask people if they watch public TV, and they always say yes because they think they sound smarter if they do. But if you say, what's your favorite show, they don't have a clue, right?
Well, that's like Obama not being able to name a Chicago White Sox player that he liked.
You had to find a way to
Yes,
get that around, get a little shot in.
absolutely.
I see. Okay,
Anyway,
good.
all right, so let's move on to this Senate failure today when it came to the extension of unemployment benefits. It was a procedural vote. Harry Reid didn't change this apparently, so they still needed 60 votes, and they got 58. Four Republicans voted with the Democrats. So that's it. So this is now dead, and let the demagoguing begin.
It's dead for a while. Look, you know, I don't blame this whole thing on the Republicans. Surprisingly, there's for some reason, nobody will get into the weeds on this issue and do what you have to do. Look, there's a certain reality here that we have to acknowledge. If you live in North Dakota, where McDonald's is paying between $50 and $30 an hour because so many people are taking jobs at the oil places, you know, there's so much work there, unemployment's a much smaller issue in unemployment than it is in, say, Pennsylvania. We've got to focus in more on this as to where the issues are if we're going to help people. We can't be lazy, and I think that's what Congress
All right,
is doing.
so you're not looking for a national solution. You're looking for a state-by-state. Ron Christie joins us again. And, Ron, the Senate failing to reach the 60-vote threshold on a procedural vote for the extension of unemployment benefits. And so for now, that is completely dead.
I think that's right, and I think it's unfortunate that Senate Democrats want to play games and play politics with an issue when, frankly, the president, this administration, and the Democrats in the Senate have not actually wanted to move forward with policies that would create jobs, but instead try to demonize the Republicans at the expense of those who really need the help the most.
Now, you see that? I gave you a policy answer. Ron went to the politics. We got to get deeper on this than that. Ron, I don't know if you were able to hear.
Rick believes that it's more of a regional issue and a state-by-state issue possibly than a national issue.
That way. I do. You know,
let him respond. Let Ron respond. Yeah.
Go ahead, Ron.
Ron?
We lose Ron?
We might have lost Ron. See, we found him, and just like that, we lost him.
I don't know. Tough to keep a hold of this man.
I'll give it one more shot. Ron? No, all right. We will get him back. All right, we'll get him back. We'll get him back next hour.
He's on his cell phone on a train or something.
When we do our panel in the next hour. Now, we talked about with Pat Buchanan also, in addition to unemployment and immigration, we talked about Ukraine. But I want to talk a little bit. All right, but Ron is back. Okay, Ron, you want to weigh in and to Ron's point that everybody's making a mistake, he said, on this unemployment extension. We have a minute left, but I'll ask you, can we regionalize it? Could we make it state by state?
I think we could. I think we could look at states. If you look at the Dakotas that have a statistical full employment, where I don't think it's warranted that we would necessarily have those extension of benefits there. But if you look in a regional perspective, we ought to sit down very carefully at those states, the upper Midwest, for example, that have been really hard hit by this recession, and try to help those who need the help the most. But writing a blank check in the billions and billions of dollars, I don't think is the right
Am I getting that you two are going to have
I
something
know,
to agree on?
That was kumbaya, baby. Ron and I said exactly the same thing, including citing the Dakotas.
All right, guys. We'll see you at the next hour for the next panel. Thank you very much, Rick Unger and Ron Christie here on the Steve Malzberg Show. When we come back, we go spinning the law with famed attorney Kendall Coffey, and it's all right here on the Steve Malzberg Show, Newsmax TV and radio.
The Steve Malzberg Show.
Obamacare. President Obama's massive health care law is taking effect this year. With over 15,000 pages of regulations, few even know what it means. Now, the Obamacare Survival Guide by Nick Tate gives you the shocking facts about this law. It's a step-by-step guide on how you can protect yourself. Already the New York Times bestseller, every American needs to get the Obamacare Survival Guide and find out about the new taxes, hidden fees, fines, Medicare changes, business rules, and why doctor shortages are likely. Donald Trump says the Obamacare Survival Guide is a must-read for anyone worried about getting good health care for themselves or their employees. So get the Obamacare Survival Guide. It's at bookstores, or get our special offer at Obamacare911.com and you'll save $15. Go now to Obamacare911.com. Obamacare911.com.
Newsmax Magazine is proud to present a special tribute to our 40th president, Ronald Reagan. It's a very special documentary and commemorative issue of Newsmax Magazine celebrating the centennial of President Reagan's birth. First, here's a video clip from the award-winning documentary, Rendezvous with Destiny.
We're in the midst of a springtime of hope for America.
You ain't seen nothing yet.
Impulses of an evil empire.
Tear down this wall.
I believe that together we can keep this rendezvous with destiny.
In the next several minutes, you will learn things about President Ronald Reagan that you've never seen, heard, or read before. Welcome to today's special Newsmax event celebrating the life and legacy of President Reagan. During this historic presentation, we will commemorate President Reagan's storied life. We'll revisit his 2 terms in office and recollect his proudest achievements and greatest challenges. Ronald Reagan's life reads like a fairy tale of success stories. He was an accomplished athlete, an honored veteran, a famous actor, the governor of California, and of course, our nation's 40th president.
He called himself a citizen politician and only entered politics when he warned government was gaining too much power. By then he was age 54, with a successful career behind him. Twice elected President of the United States, Ronald Wilson Reagan was a contradiction to some. Once a Democrat, then a Republican. A champion of smaller government whose own government grew. A fiscal conservative who failed to balance the budget. His critics mistook his affability for weakness, but behind the smile and the charm existed an extraordinary leader with unique skills and bold and revolutionary ideas.
We only had time to share just a few of the top defining moments in Ronald Reagan's presidency, but you'll get to see them all in Rendezvous with Destiny. By the way, the president's close relationship with the Pope is especially fascinating. You'll also learn how dealing with an alcoholic father helped shape Reagan's ability to negotiate. And if you ever wondered what the leader of the free world likes to get for the holidays, well, you'll find that out as well. So let's review today in this free offer. We are sending you a copy of Ronald Reagan, Rendezvous with Destiny, and the collector's limited edition of our issue commemorating the 100th anniversary of President Reagan's birth.
Right now, when you subscribe to Newsmax Magazine, you can own both the DVD and receive the special Reagan 100th Birthday Commemorative Edition. That's $25 in bonus gifts when you subscribe. Go to newsmax.com/Reagan13 to subscribe today. Join the millions who read Newsmax Magazine every month.
You have the right to remain silent, but we'd prefer if you didn't.
Spinning the law, spinning the law.
This is Malzberg's Spinning the Law.
Spinning the law, spinning the law.
With attorney Kendall Coffey.
All right, folks, we welcome you back to the Steve Malzberg Show, and we are honored to have with us our friend Kendall Coffey. Hello, Kendall.
Hey, Steve, how are you? The honor is all mine.
Oh, well, the pleasure is mine. Something's got to be mine.
Something.
I want something. All right, we have so many stories to talk about today, and I don't know where to start, so I will start with the death of the actor Philip Seymour Hoffman, who was presumably died of a heroin overdose, according to all reports. And now there's a controversy out there about the drug dealers. They arrested 3 people, although 2 of the lawyers I heard this morning saying it's circumstantial. They had absolutely nothing to do with selling this guy drugs. But let's assume they find the guy who sold him the drugs. I want you to listen to this from CNN, Ashley Banfield, who had on 2 people you should be very familiar with, both Alan Dershowitz and Mark O'Mara. And here's how that little segment went.
You could make the case for felony murder. It would be an absurd application of an absurd law. The felony murder concept itself, which started in England and has been abolished in England, is an absurd misapplication of the law. Here you have a man who was addicted, who went out and got the drugs from somebody. That somebody didn't want him to die. He didn't die because
that someone didn't care. If they're dealing in heroin, they don't care.
Okay, well, then Mark O'Mara went on to kind of agree with Ashley Banfield and disagree with Alan Dershowitz to an extent. What is common practice now when it comes to drug overdose deaths? I mean, of non-famous people, I guess they don't even try to track down the dealer. But if they do know who dealt the fatal drugs to that person, can they be held responsible for that death?
Well, I've got to begin by saying Alan Dershowitz is a personal hero of mine. I don't think there's a greater legal town or person in the law in this country, and I would never want to bet on him being wrong. I will tell you that if a case can be proven, and that's a giant if, because a victim of an overdose isn't around to tell you who they got it from. And, you know, there are huge proof problems in these kind of cases. But there are a number of different states that have statutes which make it a form of felony murder explicitly and say that people who are drug dealers, whose drugs result in somebody's death, can be accountable for the homicide, including their convictions for manslaughter. It's a giant issue of proof for all the reasons I just sort of referred to. But legally, it is a crime that can be charged.
Okay, very, very interesting. So we'll have to wait and see. High bar, high threshold there, and I guess rightfully so. You don't want, kind of a revenge type thing, or the public to just be able to pull someone off the street, albeit.
Well, and I don't think there's any sympathy from anyone for drug dealers.
That's what I was going to say. Albeit it's a drug dealer.
Heroin.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So it's just, but it is a matter of proof, and many times addicts are, tragically in a condition where they're using, different sources. So, and there's not records. There's not going to be email correspondence showing they just got the supply and being able to link it up. So the proof problems are huge, which is why even though we have over 40,000 overdose deaths a year, many of them are actually from prescription products, but certainly others are from classic illegal banned substances. That's why you don't hear about so many prosecutions as you might think would be well-deserved.
Right. All right, we're talking to Kendall Coffey here on our Spinning the Law segment. Let's move on to George Zimmerman, who's back in the news. We have a rapper, DMX. Don't ask me. Too bad it's not D-A-M, and then it would be don't ask me. But DMX, he wants to fight. He's good to fight, apparently, George Zimmerman. And there's some controversy about it. I don't really understand the legal controversy or the points being brought up by the likes of Nancy Grace yesterday on CNN. She was on, and I want you to hear what she had to say to Brooke Baldwin.
Is there any way whatsoever that Zimmerman could benefit from this?
Sure.
How?
Taking a cut, having his agent take a cut, and it filtered down to Zimmerman.
So just
there's
money.
A million ways. Look, you've had the Trayvon Martin shooting. You've had the girlfriend claiming she was beaten up and a gun pointed at her. You've had the wife claim she was beaten up. Why we would even entertain this, I don't know. Who wants to see George Zimmerman anymore, ever again, after the misery that he's caused?
All right, now, there are laws. I don't know if it's a national law, but certainly there are laws state by state where if you commit a crime, you can't profit off that crime by writing a book or making a movie. George Zimmerman, I guess they're forgetting, and I'll play you another soundbite later that you could comment on if you like. George Zimmerman did not commit a crime. He was found not guilty, and these other 911 calls from the girlfriend and the wife, they both basically recanted. So why shouldn't he be able to fight, and why is it even a question whether or not he could profit? Why can't he profit?
He wasn't convicted of any crime, to my knowledge.
Right.
I guess years ago he had some issue involving a resisting arrest. That's the reality is he's entitled to go out and write a book and do a reality TV show and get on the air with you and me, although we wouldn't pay him for it. People still have the same rights, whether they're controversial, whether you don't like them, whether you think they got away with murder. So you're exactly right. Many states have laws. Most states have laws that understandably say that if you're convicted of a crime, you can't profit from the crime. And, of course, if you're in a situation and you're going out publicly making money, you expose yourself to people who might want to file a civil lawsuit. If somebody thinks it's time to bring a wrongful death case, or somebody for alleged girlfriend or spousal mistreatment, then they think you've maybe got some money they can go after. So you expose yourself to civil lawsuits, but legally being controversial doesn't mean, the Constitution has been parked at your doorstep.
Right. Now, I just want you to hear this, because to me, this is, to me, the fact that a party, I won't even say the name because there's the New Black Panther Party, the Old Black, I don't know who they were, but they were one of those groups or offshoots that put out allegedly put out a bounty on George Zimmerman's head even before he was arrested in the Trayvon Martin case. In our Justice Department, no one did anything about it. That was fine with them. And here, listen to the next Baldwin cut here, Brooke Baldwin and Nancy Grace, because to me, this is just appalling. And like I said, if you want to weigh in, you can, but here it is.
Who wants to see George Zimmerman anymore, ever again, after the misery that he's caused? But I can tell you one thing, I'm sure Trayvon Martin's parents would like to get in the ring and have a go at him.
I'm thinking there are definitely people in this country who would like to see people beating on George Zimmerman. I mean, the demand, I imagine, would be there. I don't know if we'd be watching.
It's blood money. It's making a profit off of a crime.
All right, well, it wasn't a crime. We established that, but and she wants to say that the parents would like to get in there and in the ring with him. But for Brooke Baldwin, the anchor, the interviewer, to say, I'm sure there's lots of people in this country who would like to beat on George Zimmerman. I mean, he's a private citizen who's committed no crime. This is outrageous.
Well, he's also a subject of endless fascination, and we're all going to keep talking about him. It's hard not to. I mean, we've all got opinions. Most people have strong opinions on it. That's the joy of the First Amendment. He has the right to go out and earn a few bucks, and we've got the right to talk about him.
All right, we're talking to Kendall Coffey here on the Steve Malzberg Show. Supreme Court Justice Anthony Scalia recently made some remarks, painting a grim picture, if you will, according to some, when he told students at the University of Hawaii, nice place to be, I'd like to do my show from Hawaii for about a month, that a future Supreme Court could very easily uphold the legality of internment camps during wartime, once again, similar to the internment camps that were used for, during World War II to intern Japanese Americans. Is this something that's surprising for you to hear from a Supreme Court justice, or is it something that Supreme Court justices, well, they weigh in on issues, but is this kind of like it sends shockwaves in some circles?
Well, it's a remarkable comment. I mean, I think he was very clear to say that the internment of Japanese, which was unfortunately approved by the U.S. Supreme Court in the Korematsu decision, was something that he, Justice Scalia, disapproved of, that he would hope as a man of law that there would never be such a thing that a court would allow. But what he was trying to do, in a way you got to admire his candor, even if you don't agree with him about this or a number of other issues, is give some historical perspective. What has happened in previous wars? I mean, did Lincoln, who we all revere and should revere, did he use all kinds of extraordinary presidential powers during a time of war to suppress what we might otherwise consider to be civil and individual liberties? The administration during World War II did something that historians say was wrong, and we all say was legally wrong. But what Scalia was saying is that maybe we haven't changed that much. And if we as a nation someday in the future are scared to death about foreign enemies, domestic enemies, or our ability to survive as a nation, as people, don't be so surprised if measures that you don't like, if measures that you think might well be illegal, happen again, because it's happened before more than once.
Yeah, very, very interesting. All right, my friend, as always, we really do appreciate your time, and we'll speak to you soon.
Okay, thanks for having me.
Thank you. My pleasure. Kendall Coffey, ladies and gentlemen, here on the Steve Malzberg Show. And, it is a very interesting comment to make. And as Kendall alluded to, he said that the decision was obviously wrong when asked about the internment of Japanese Americans during World War II. But he said you shouldn't assume that the Supreme Court would never dare attempt that kind of decision again. He said we, of course, It was wrong. I think we've repudiated it in a later case. But you're kidding yourself if you think the same thing will not happen again. That's what was going on, the panic about the war, the invasion of the Pacific and whatnot. That's what happens. It was wrong, but I would not be surprised to see it happen again in a time of war. It's no justification, but it's a reality. And, I mean, I can't say that I disagree with him. At the time, when you're under attack and when you fear for your the safety of your nation, things are done. And some you look back on and say that was wrong, and some you look back on and say, that was correct. And some I don't think you could ever say we will never do that again. Although, to be honest with you, I really believe that under this administration and this president, that even if we had the ticking time bomb scenario, for instance, where you have a terrorist, God forbid a bomb has gone off in this country, and there's another one that's going to go off, and we think we've got the guy who knows where the bomb is going off and when, I don't think this president would have them stick his head underwater to find out. No. And that frightens the heck out of me. I will never understand that, and I just don't get it. Your first responsibility is to protect American citizens, and you do whatever it takes if you know there's imminent danger. But maybe I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong, and I hope we don't come to that. Okay, when we come back, Larry Klayman will be here, the man who beat the NSA in court. He wants the Supreme Court to now weigh in on the NSA case. We'll talk about it with him on the Steve Malzberg Show, 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern Time, Monday through Friday on Newsmax TV and radio. Don't go away.
The Steve Malzberg Show.
Meet John and Nancy. Like many people, John and Nancy have spent their whole lives working hard, saving their money and investing wisely, knowing that it would pay off in the end. But the reality is, today's world is not the same as it was. John and Nancy's stocks have taken them on a serious roller coaster ride, and it's all but destroyed their retirement funds. Their house is not even close to being worth what they paid, and to boot, their middle-class paychecks no longer cover their costs. All that hard work and smart investing has gotten them nowhere. In fact, they are no longer thinking about when they will retire, they're wondering if they'll retire. Then one day, John and Nancy heard about a man named Tom Hutchison, a veteran of Wall Street for over 2 decades. Tom noticed that the wealthy invested differently than normal people, and their methods seemed to be a secret they didn't want to share. So Tom left his job, compiled the strategies, and published them in the controversial book, Powerful Secrets to Achieve Superior Returns. John and Nancy immediately picked up a copy, began investing, and never looked back. Thanks to Powerful Secrets, John and Nancy now have investments that pay up to 20% a year. They learned about unique tax-advantaged investments, and their favorite chapter revealed a strategy that anyone can use to turn $50,000 into $1 million. Now, John and Nancy have control of their financial future in this new reality, and they have peace of mind about their investments that they never had before. Best of all, they are back on track to a secure retirement. To get your free copy of the book, Powerful Secrets to Achieve Superior Returns, simply visit www.myfinancialage.org.
Meet Jim. Like many of us, Jim enjoys a busy life. Between work, family, and friends, his days zip along. And Jim has the energy to tackle almost anything. But lately, Jim's get up and go has literally taken on a new meaning. Jim's always put focus on a full night's sleep, but it seems like these days, he's up and down to go to the bathroom so many times he can barely wake up in the morning. His prostate concerns have him sad, tired, and worried. Activities that were once enjoyable now seem like a chore for Jim. His golf game is at the mercy of his bathroom schedule. Family outings are planned around it too. Jim even has difficulty going to the bathroom. He's tried so many prostate remedies he can't keep them straight, and nothing ever seems to help. Then Jim found out about Prostate Revive, the all-natural dietary supplement specifically formulated for men, targeted towards improving and sustaining normal prostate function. Prostate Revive includes 15 super ingredients never combined before, including saw palmetto extract, beta-cytosterol, pomegranate fruit extract, selenium, and other high-quality nutrients. These targeted and all-natural ingredients promote healthy urinary flow and optimal prostate health. And the best part is, Prostate Revive was developed by a renowned medical doctor. Dr. David Brownstein personally formulated Prostate Revive with one goal in mind: to promote a healthy prostate gland. Thanks to Prostate Revive, Jim's got his life back. He gets a full night's sleep every night, and his friends and his wife can't believe he's the same guy. He has his old energy back, and no one has to wait for him. He doesn't even think about his prostate concerns anymore. Visit MedicSelect.com to take back your nights and improve your quality of life with Prostate Revive.
Attention seniors and baby boomers. A new website has been created just for you. MyBenefits211.com. At MyBenefits211.com, we reveal a weird trick that could help you add $152,000 to your Social Security payouts. For example, did you know how you file for Social Security can dramatically change the amount of money you collect? One simple step could add up to $1,000 to your monthly payouts. And other strategies we found reveal 33 ways for big savings on your health care. At MyBenefits211.com, you will also discover how you could save up to 50% on your groceries, along with 49 other ways to save as much as $50,000 starting today. Newsmax says MyBenefits211.com is a critical resource for anyone over the age of 50. So go to MyBenefits211.com now to find out how you could add extra money to your Social Security checks. That's MyBenefits211.com. MyBenefits211.com.
The Steve Malzberg Show is just a bit different from the other radio shows. We have TV cameras. Watch the show at Newsmax.com or listen on your favorite radio station. Here's Steve Malzberg.
All right, folks, and we are joined right now by Larry Klayman, founder of Judicial Watch and Freedom Watch. Hey, Larry.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Of course, Larry, the man who won the first court battle against the legality of the NSA, massive phone call tracking database. And you want this to be handled by the Supreme Court sooner rather than later.
Well, that's right. People can see the petition at our website at freedomwatchusa.org. But what we're saying is that there's no time to lose. It's that when you lose your constitutional rights even for 1 minute, that's 1 minute too long. In fact, there are court cases to that effect. And we got a favorable decision from the judge. He enjoined the NSA preliminarily on December 16th of last year, but he stayed that decision pending appeal. So we're trying to accelerate the appeal because the entirety of the American people are continuing to have their cell phones, their internet communications, their email, text messages, and social media surveyed and watched by the government. The judge called it almost Orwellian, like 1984. We effectively live in a police state.
Now, there was a hearing, am I correct, earlier in the week?
There was a hearing on Monday. It was a status conference hearing. And at the hearing, the judge chided the government, to use the term loosely, through the Obama Justice Department, to get moving on the case. They're actually in default in one of the cases that we brought. They didn't file an answer timely. They said, I want that answer in a week. In addition, we're going to probably be back in front of that court in the next few weeks because they have a motion to dismiss pending on some issues that I believe they're going to lose. But the major issue we won, and that was on Fourth Amendment and on telephone metadata, and that's going forward through the courts, and that's what we want the Supreme Court to take a look at right away.
Well, what if it goes through the normal legal channels that a case would go through before attaining Supreme Court status or getting a hearing there? It could take years, right?
It could. Unlikely in this case to take years. Even the D.C. Circuit, that's the intermediate appellate court, accelerated the briefing. But there's no point in going through this middle-level briefing. Never before in our nation's history have we seen our countries and our people's constitutional rights violated like this. This is the worst example of tyranny that I know of in my lifetime, and I can't think of anything worse on a grand scale than to have everybody's telephone messages, internet, emails, everything intercepted and accessed. So we hope the Supreme Court will take this up, and the Supreme Court justices themselves are probably under surveillance, since everybody is. Anybody with a cell phone and a computer is being monitored by the NSA. So I hope they take it personally, and it should be resolved ASAP, because we've got 3 different courts with 3 different decisions. Our court found in our favor, but we've got a New York federal court that found the other way, and we've got the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court that rubber stamped what's been going on. So the Supreme Court has to break the impasse when there are constitutional issues, and that's why we are hopeful and confident that it will take this matter up now.
All right, Larry, what's been the in your view, the reaction from the media and from the administration since you won your case?
Well, most of the media is very favorably disposed to us. Interestingly enough, we're getting a lot of accolades, not just from the right, but from the left, even more to some degree. I hope that our conservative friends come around on this too, because national security doesn't have to be traded away with violating the privacy rights of all Americans. And one of the things the judge found is that through this metadata surveillance, which grabs everybody's telephone messages and calls, they haven't stopped one terrorist attack. So what are they doing? If they're trying to stop terrorism, this has to be for another purpose, which I believe is to keep the American people down, not to question the political establishment. Lift your head up, complain, and you'll have that head chopped off. They can do it. They can gather data. They can give it to the IRS. They can give it to the Justice Department. And people can't communicate these days without thinking they're being listened to. And that's simply unacceptable.
So we're talking FreedomWatchUSA.org for the petition. Larry, as always, thank you for coming on, sir.
Thanks, Steve.
Right, my pleasure. That's Larry Klayman, ladies and gentlemen, the founder of Judicial Watch and Freedom Watch here on the Steve Malzberg Show. So tonight is the final Tonight Show with Jay Leno. And I've been watching on and off the shows during the course of the week. They had some funny video yesterday as to what Jay's going to do next, and they had videos of him dancing and doing posing, bodybuilding, and all kinds of stuff with his head superimposed on other bodies, which was pretty funny. And Sandra, what's her name? The actress, she's in Gravity, and she Sandra Bullock, yeah. And he showed all her different hairdos during all her appearances on The Tonight Show over the years. So, you know what? I think NBC is making a big mistake. And I think that their ratings will, well, I think Jimmy Fallon, when he takes over, will have good ratings. But I think it's going to take a while to reach Jay's ratings. And Jay's going to wind up somewhere else if he wants to. That's the thing. Think if CNN put on Jay Leno. Think if Fox News Channel or Fox regular program on their regular channel put on Jay Leno. He'd beat everybody. So I think they're making a mistake. They're taking a Cy Young Award winner and they're putting in a Rookie of the Year. And, the Cy Young Award winner could win some more Cy Young Awards. It's a tough call. But I never was a big fan of Leno, but he's grown on me over the years. That's just one humble opinion. All right, folks, when we come back, Rich Lowry and much more on the Steve Malzberg Show, Newsmax TV and radio.
The Steve Malzberg Show.
What you don't know about Pope Francis will shock you. Bestseller, Francis, A Pope for Our Time, tells the real story. Newsmax says Francis, A Pope for Our Time, rips off the shroud of mystery about this man. Now Newsmax has a special offer for Francis, A Pope for Our Time. Get it for just $9.95 and save $12 off the cover price. Plus, we'll send you a free 1-year subscription to Newsmax magazine. That's a $40 value for free. Order now at popesagenda.com.
Obamacare. More than $1 trillion in new costs. Hidden taxes, fees, big Medicare cuts, doctor shortages. How can we survive?
To know Obamacare is to survive Obamacare. The Obamacare Survival Guide tells you everything you need to know to protect yourself, your family, your business. The Obamacare Survival Guide at bookstores everywhere. Special internet-only offer right now at Obamacare911.com.
Attention seniors and baby boomers. A new website has been created just for you. MyBenefits211.com. At MyBenefits211.com, we reveal a weird trick that could help you add $152,000 to your Social Security payouts. For example, did you know how you file for Social Security can dramatically change the amount of money you collect? One simple step could add up to $1,000 to your monthly payouts. And other strategies we found reveal 33 ways for big savings on your health care. At MyBenefits211.com, you will also discover how you could save up to 50% on your groceries, along with 49 other ways to save as much as $50,000 starting today. Newsmax says MyBenefits211.com is a critical resource for anyone over the age of 50. So go to MyBenefits211.com now to find out how you could add extra money to your Social Security checks. That's MyBenefits211.com. MyBenefits211.com.
Hi, it's Steve Malzberg, and on this hour of the Steve Malzberg Show, Rich Lowry of National Review will join us. We'll also talk to Ralph Peters. Syria misses a key deadline in handing over their chemical weapons. Ralph will weigh in on that. Also, Michael Hiltzig of the LA Times. He says Obamacare is great for the nation. And we'll have the panel, Ron Christie and Rick Unger. All that and more straight ahead on this hour of the Steve Malzberg Show.
3, 2, 1. Broadcasting live from the Newsmax studios, this is the Steve Malzberg Show. Be a part of the action by calling toll-free 1-877-NEWSMAX. That's 1-877-639-7629. Or email Steve at malzbergshow@newsmax.com. Here is Steve Malzberg.
Now, you know, Dana, Bill O'Reilly also asked the president about visits the IRS commissioner made to the White House. Listen to this.
Douglas Shulman, former IRS chief, he was cleared into the White House 157 times, more than any of your cabinet members, more than any other IRS guy in the history by far. Okay, why was Douglas Shulman here 157 times? Why?
Mr. Shulman, as the head of the IRS, is constantly coming in because at the time we were trying to set up the healthcare.gov.
Now, first of all,
Test 1, 2, 3.
76% of the meetings the IRS commissioner was cleared to attend at the White House involved the health care law. And it's only confirmed that he signed in for 11 events. I mean, doesn't that poke some kind of hole in the theory that he was there all the time plotting against conservatives?
All right, well, obviously he was there. He was there. Al Sharpton takes the interview that was done where the president admits and saying, well, he was there all those times because, you know, the IRS was involved in Obamacare, and Al Sharpton then makes it seem as if the premise of O'Reilly's question was false when Obama already acknowledged that the premise was correct based on his answer. So I don't even understand how they put that on the air, because the president didn't say, "You're not right, Bill. He wasn't there 176 times or whatever. He wasn't there more than any other cabinet member." The president explained why that was true, why that was the case. And then you have Al Sharpton trying to dispel that was the case. Based on what? Based on a report that Al read somewhere? I don't understand. Wouldn't the president know if it was not true? He was asked point blank, and he didn't deny the validity of the statistics. So I don't know what they're trying to prove. Well, I do know what they're trying to prove. All right, folks, don't move. We're coming back with Rich Lowry on the Steve Malzberg Show. Somehow.
The Steve Malzberg Show.
And joining us now is our friend Rich Lowry, editor of the National Review. Hello, Rich.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing well. All right, we have a lot to get to, and not the least of which is one of the headlines breaking today is that John Boehner has reportedly put the brakes on immigration legislation, saying that in the current climate it's going to be difficult to move any bill forward. Also referencing the fact, or maybe not a direct reference, that it's hard to trust Barack Obama to enforce any part of a security portion of an immigration reform bill when he's not enforcing the immigration laws right now. So you wrote a piece, and before we get to that, about the pathway debate. Before we get to that, what do you make of John Boehner's remarks?
Well, he's right that the president can't be trusted. I will not believe that so-called immigration reform is dead for this year until it has a stake through its heart and is buried, 12 or 18 feet under. So,
you need a silver cross also kind of thing? Yeah,
exactly. So I think there's so much pressure from business interests to get this done. I hope he's right that it's unlikely it's going to happen and it's not going to happen, but we're eternal vigilance should be the word here.
Okay, now you're right. While the business interests certainly seem to be the ones pushing the Republican leadership to go ahead with this, it seems like they're the only ones pushing the Republican leadership to go ahead with this. There are no conservatives really that want this done. But you wrote a piece. You talked about the Potemkin pathway debate. Explain.
Yeah, Republicans have been making a big deal. They did this in the so-called principles, where they're saying the key question is whether illegal immigrants eventually have a pathway to citizenship. And I really think that's foolish, because what matters most to the illegal population is simply being able to work and live here legally. As soon as that happens, that's the key to the kingdom for them. And if you look at the 1986 amnesty, I think only about 40% of the illegal immigrants who were legalized in that process went on to become citizens, because they basically just wanted to be legal. That was what's most important. So our fear was that Republicans would make a big deal of that Democrats would inevitably give in on that, realizing it's not that important, and that they could get another bite of the apple later, and accuse Republicans of hating Latinos because they didn't have a pathway to citizenship in the law. So that for us just wasn't the thing to focus on.
All right, and one more final note. Talking about that you don't believe it's dead. Then what do you think? Do you think he's being insincere here, Boehner? Do you think this is a strategy? And what's the end game?
Yeah. Now, Steve, I should be clear. I don't know. Maybe he is completely sincere.
No, but your thought process on this, yeah.
Yeah, but I just worry that there'll still be pressure to do this, and it's not just from the business interests. There are some people on the right who are quite sincere about wanting to go in this direction, like Budget Chairman Paul Ryan. There's also the political consultant types who say you have to do it or you're going to lose Latino voters forever, which is, I think, is kind of foolish. And then also there's speculation that Boehner might conceive of this as kind of legacy.
And joining us now is our friend Rich Lowry, editor of the It all comes from Peyton Manning, I guess, all the Super Bowl talk. But that their legacy will be irreparably harmed if they okay the Keystone Pipeline. And you wrote a great piece about Keystone, and you say that the Obama administration is committed to to more years of study and delay. And I got that impression from his remarks to O'Reilly, actually, when O'Reilly said, there's nothing to stop you now, it's all clear. And he's like, whoa, wait, Bill, I'm with you. I just don't think he's going to ever do this.
Yeah, now he may feel forced to do it to help red state Democrats towards the end of the year, or he may find some clever way not to decide, but sort of let the Congress force his hand, but certainly completely left to his own devices. He just wouldn't do it. And the irony here, the State of the Union talked about the year of action and how if Congress is not going to act, I will, and we need to clear the way for permitting for certain important projects. And here's this project that makes complete sense, has been reviewed environmentally 5 times, flying colors each time, and that would create a couple tens of thousands good blue-collar jobs. And he doesn't want to do it because he wants to kowtow to the environmentalists.
Right, and you as you put down in your piece at National Review, this is a great fundraising issue for the left, and bashing Keystone or not doing it and keeping the controversy alive is a good way to get that money coming in.
Yeah, exactly. And the crazy belief that this one single pipeline will determine the fate of the planet. Some of these alarmists have actually made that argument, which is just absurd. We could end all our carbon emissions in the United States, and it's still really a drop in the bucket because the developing countries are coming on so strong industrially, and they're not going to stop.
Of course not.
They're not going to harm their economies on on the basis of some posited far-off threat.
I love that he stood there at the State of the Union and said that the debate is over on climate change. As the snow piles up, and I can't even walk the streets without falling down. It's just insane. All right, now let's turn our attention here to David Wildstein and the whole Christie controversy. And I love the headline. I don't know if you wrote it or not, but you are in charge there at National Review, so maybe you did. Did David Wildstein cut the lunch line in the 5th grade? And of course, after the big revelation by the New York Times a week ago that from the lawyer of Wildstein, who was the appointee to the Port Authority by Christie, who then took the 5th, and the lawyer says, well, first the New York Times wrote that the lawyer and Wildstein have evidence that shows Christie knew of the lane closures when they happened. Then it got revamped on the New York Times story unceremoniously that the lawyer said evidence exists, didn't say he had it. But then Christie's people started putting out, I guess, it's expected, but it's playing the Clinton trash the messenger game. Wildstein was a crazy kid. Wildstein sued somebody when he was a youngster. Wildstein did this when he was in grade school, and that's kind of nuts.
Yeah. So the story looks as if now, with the perspective of a couple days, as though it was overhyped. And of course, Wildstein has a reason to kind of protect his interests because he's in legal jeopardy. But the Christie people put out this press release. It's one of the more astonishing press releases I've seen recently because they literally said that his social science teacher, in high school, publicly said he was dishonest, So, and the implication of the thing is that this guy has been a bad actor since he was 15 years old.
Right.
So then why do you put him on the Port Authority?
Yeah. It does call your own judgment into question if you knew all these things and you put him in that position, so it's kind of self-defeating.
Yeah, so, I mean, the way the Wildstein thing stands at the moment, it leaves the story where it's been, I think, where Christie's definitely been dented and it's definitely hurt him, but the eager proclamations of his complete demise as a political figure that we hear from the press every time something pops up,
right,
are way premature.
No, absolutely. Every time there's a morsel, whether it, as with this Times story, which was nothing, it's going to be, that CNN is going to interrupt programming to bring it to you and keep talking about it for the entire week. As always, sir, a very interesting conversation. I appreciate your time, Rich.
Thanks so much, Steve.
Thank you. Rich Lowry, ladies and gentlemen, editor of the National Review, here on the Steve Malzberg Show. And that is really crazy stuff with Wildstein on both ends. The way the media overreacted to that New York Times story, the way the Times had to change the story, and then when he was 16 years old, he was sued over a local school board election Christie's people put out. Okay, what are you going to do? That's the way it is. Some things never change. That's a song. When we come back, the panel is back. back. Once again, Rick Unger, Democrat from Forbes magazine, and Ron Christie, Republican strategist, right here on the Steve Malzberg Show, Newsmax TV and radio.
The Steve Malzberg Show.
Attention seniors and baby boomers. A new website has been created just for you. MyBenefits211.com. At MyBenefits211.com, we reveal a weird trick that could help you add $152,000 to your Social Security payouts. For example, did you know how you file for Social Security can dramatically change the amount of money you collect? One simple step could add up to $1,000 to your monthly payouts. And other strategies we found reveal 33 ways for big savings on your health care. At MyBenefits211.com, you will also discover how you could save up to 50% on your groceries, along with 49 other ways to save as much as $50,000 starting today. Newsmax says MyBenefits211.com is a critical resource for anyone over the age of 50. So go to MyBenefits211.com now to find out how you could add extra money to your Social Security checks. That's MyBenefits211.com. MyBenefits211.com.
We're in the midst of an obesity epidemic, and I'm not surprised. The statistics on obesity mirror an increasing trend of eating out or ordering in. In fact, some people dine out every night, but eating in restaurants is one of the biggest enemies of your heart. When you're in a restaurant, you don't really know what you're getting, and the calorie counts of many restaurant dishes are astronomical. In fact, some single dishes contain more calories than we should eat in an entire day. Eating in fast food restaurants is even worse. A diet of hamburgers, French fries, and shakes constitutes a fast lane to the emergency room. If you really want to help your heart, get in the habit of cooking simple meals at home. Here are 3 easy tips that will make your food taste better than even the best restaurant. Choose the best fruit in season. Your local farmer's market is a great place to start. It will probably still cost less than that pie you were thinking of buying. Get in the habit of using fresh herbs. You can use them in egg white omelets or dust them on the fish you grill or bake. And for a light dessert, choose a square or 2 of dark chocolate that you and your spouse can enjoy. There are lots of ways to make your heart healthy, but there are also lots of ways to damage it. That's why I wrote Fix It, Dr. Crandall's 90-day program. In it, I'll tell you how to kickstart your metabolism every day, how to pick the best diet for you, how to stop hunger from sabotaging your diet, the 7 superfoods for your heart. I'm Dr. Chauncey Crandall, and thanks for watching this Heart Health Minute.
Obamacare. More than $1 trillion in new costs. Hidden taxes, fees, big Medicare cuts, doctor shortages. How can we survive?
To know Obamacare is to survive Obamacare. The Obamacare Survival Guide tells you everything you need to know to protect yourself, your family, your business. The Obamacare Survival Guide at bookstores everywhere. Special internet-only offer right now at Obamacare911.com.
What you don't know about Pope Francis will shock you. Bestseller, Francis, A Pope for Our Time, tells the real story. Newsmax says Francis, A Pope for Our Time, rips off the shroud of mystery about this man. Now Newsmax has a special offer for Francis, A Pope for Our Time. Get it for just $9.95 and save $12 off the cover price. Plus, we'll send you a free 1-year subscription to Newsmax magazine. That's a $40 value for free. Order now at popesagenda.com.
This is not your typical Screamfest talk show. No. This is the next generation of talk radio. Here is Steve Malzberg.
All right, folks, and we are joined by the panel, rejoined by both Ron Christie, Republican strategist, and Rick Unger, Forbes magazine. Gentlemen, welcome back.
Good to be back. Good afternoon, gents.
All right. Now, I want to start with something that was said on the show yesterday, which has made news all over the country, publication after publication. Once again, Rand Paul talking about Bill Clinton. And here in cut number 44 is what some of what he had to say.
It really depicts what's really gross and wrong with, workplace harassment.
Would you call him an unsavory character?
Yeah, I mean, a predator, a sexual predator, basically, repetitive. There's dozens, or at least a half a dozen public women who've come forward. Some of them did sue in the job place. I think the Paula Jones suit, Mr. Clinton ended up paying nearly $1 million.
Okay, I asked him about the unsavory character because he said earlier, people are asked to return, candidates are asked to return money all the time if they got it from an unsavory character. And he says, what do you do if that unsavory character is your husband? So that I followed up with, do you believe, are you calling Bill Clinton an unsavory character? So let me ask you first, Ron, where do you fall? We had Charles Krauthammer on earlier in the show who said that, Republicans shouldn't go here at all. And, and I point out the fact that, Republicans are accused of fighting a war on women, yet the Democrats worship at the feet of Bill Clinton.
Well, I think it's a double-edged sword, Steve. On one hand, it was so ironic to see President Clinton at the Democratic convention talking about a war on women when, of course, not only did he get sued in the case involving Paula Jones, but he also lost his law license for lying under oath to a federal judge. Now, I see that, but on the other hand, it's just going to look like Republicans are talking and making Bill Clinton the issue rather than talking about the issues that they're for. So I understand that, but I'd rather win talking about what we're for as opposed to what President Clinton's done in the past.
And does that mean, Rick, that you would welcome people like Rand Paul continuing to talk about Clinton or not?
No, I actually wouldn't. I prefer a more serious discussion. This is why Rand Paul will not get the nomination of his party to be president. He has the worst judgment on these kinds of things. Nobody wants to hear him talk about what Bill Clinton was like. Bill Clinton's been gone for a very long time. It was a remarkably stupid conversation for him to get into. I guess I don't mind that, but as I say, I prefer a serious conversation.
Well, let me just ask you this. He's been gone for a long time, but he's not gone. He is the most respected, most looked up to, most sought after for endorsement Democratic person in the country.
Well, there's your answer.
But yes. So don't you see a hypocrisy there? No. When in 2012 the left was calling the convention in Tampa a convention of rapists, and then then you have a convention with Bill Clinton as the keynote speaker, who was accused of sexual assault, accused of rape, exposed himself, lost his law license, was impeached, had an affair with a subordinate. I mean, my gosh.
Who accused? First of all, just so we stay accurate, who in the world ever accused Bill Clinton of sexual assault?
Kathleen Willey.
Kathleen Willey.
And, and Juanita Broderick, the rape charge.
Since she tried to. Well, I don't think any of those really had any weight to them. So, again, when I say you're going back, he's not here anymore. I mean, he's not president of the United States anymore, and what he does is his own business. This is just an effort on Rand Paul's part to try and get at Hillary Clinton by accusing her husband of being a sleaze. It's not going to work out very well for him. If you look at the recent poll that came out, Bill Clinton is the most forgiven man in America, aside from being the most sought after for speeches. So this is just a silly, silly place to go. I can't believe he did it. I don't think Rand Paul's stupid. I may not agree with his politics, but I begin to wonder when I see him launching an attack like this. If he wants to become a minister, maybe we'll all go to his church and he can moralize for us. But if he wants to be president, boy, is he in the wrong business.
All right, let's move on to a man who is president, and I believe is in the wrong business, and that is what a segue! I got to write that one down.
That was good. That was good.
And that would be Barack Obama. And Megyn Kelly made a point to James Carville, who, by the way, I understand just got hired as a Fox News contributor. James did, it's a great point because in the O'Reilly interview, of course, Obama attacked Fox News again. He's attacked Rush Limbaugh on Fox News over and over. Let's listen to cut number 30.
is it too? Is embarrassing for the President of the United States to be complaining about a cable channel? I mean, President Bush never did this about MSNBC.
Bush people would complain about the liberal media all the time. Nixon was always playing a victim in a victim. It's in the dialogue. Fox has got to understand that Democrats think that Fox leans right. And if you're a big network, and Fox is, and it's a profitable, powerful institution, and if people attack you, don't get sensitive about it. Just say, it's part of what it is. You're saying, well, Obama, he attacked Fox with O'Reilly. Okay, well, he did.
I deny that imitation of me.
All right, but what, I mean, what about it, Rick? The fact of the matter is, isn't it beneath the president to time after time, even once, to specifically attack a specific network?
Here's what I don't understand about it. Bill O'Reilly went and conducted what I thought was a very interesting interview with the president. Everybody loved the fact that Bill O'Reilly, just kind of got aggressive, went after him. Everybody was saying, hey, he may be the president, but he's got to take those questions like a regular guy. And yet, if the president turns around and criticizes Fox, that suddenly isn't okay. You want to have an open interview with Bill O'Reilly? You want him to be free to not pull punches? And he didn't. To ask what he wants to. Why can't the president respond? Why do you, it seems like a very, very unfair argument. Look, I work at Fox Network. I love Fox Network. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that Fox does not, or people on Fox don't take shots at the president. They do. Other ones do too. If he wants to shoot back, come on.
All right,
grow up.
But Ron, I mean, Megan was right. You never heard President Bush go around saying, "Oh boy, that MSNBC."
Yes, you did.
No, you didn't.
Yeah, you
he
did.
never did that.
No, you didn't. And in fact, when we came into office in January of 2001, the president made it very clear that our business was to do the business of the American people. We inherited a mess when we came in. We didn't go around blaming the previous administration and saying President Clinton left us this big hole.
We're not talking about that.
No, but that's exactly what we're talking about. We're talking about the current occupant of the Oval Office who diminishes his office by going around and complaining and pointing fingers.
Hey, Ron, you worked for the vice president. Do you recall a certain speech that the vice president gave at a dinner where he was cracking MSNBC jokes?
All right, we're talking about the president of the United States, who has repeatedly gone after specifically Fox News Channel and Rush Limbaugh over and over.
Oh, what's over and over? Because
several times. Several times.
This guy talks in public every day, and he's mentioned Fox 4 or 5 times. Come on.
Well, I think it's Ron. I mean, I think you agree with me that it's beneath the president.
That there is a certain dignity that's attached by being in the Oval Office and representing all Americans. When you start having winners and losers and sorting out people and saying, I blame Fox for this and I blame Bush for that, it just diminishes.
He didn't blame anybody. He said that he basically told the truth.
O'Reilly said there are people out there who think, and he said that's because you're telling them that, Bill, and your network tells them that.
So he didn't blame them for his problems. He said that's what they do. And by the way, that is what they do. And MSNBC, by the way, goes and defends him in ways that you wouldn't agree with.
There's no analogy to be made between MSNBC and Fox on the extremes.
Answer my question honestly. If he made a crack about MSNBC that attacked somebody there for saying something he didn't like, would you be upset about it? Come on, be honest.
I think that the President of the United States should not be attacking individual citizens, should not be
attacking individual citizens.
I think he spends far more time preoccupied about what people are saying and writing about.
All right, guys. All right, now, we got a minute, so I want to ask you, you going to miss Jay Leno, Ron?
Yeah, I love the guy. He's great. His numbers couldn't be any better. It's a big mistake by NBC.
And Rick?
I don't watch him, so I guess I won't miss him much. But I appreciate him.
Okay, there you go. And as I said earlier, he kind of grew on me. I never really liked him. I was always a Letterman fan.
Me too.
But Letterman's politics have over the years have just gotten so evident and so blatant.
So you can't. That's fascinating.
Doesn't even make a secret about it.
You can't enjoy him as a comedian because you don't like his politics.
No. Elvis,
you don't see something wrong with that.
Bruce Springsteen, Elvis, everybody that I like the music, I can't stand to look at them.
I enjoy your show, and yet I don't like your politics. I enjoy Ron Christie, but I don't like his politics.
Well,
what is wrong when you're picking comedians you like and don't like because of their politics?
Because I can't separate it. Anyway, this is a political show and a talk show. Anyway, all right, folks, thank you both. Thanks to Rick Unger, who was here all day from Forbes, and Ron Christie, who was here 3 times. Steve Malzberg Show coming back with Ralph Peters.
The Steve Malzberg Show.
Obamacare. President Obama's massive health care law is taking effect this year. With over 15,000 pages of regulations, few even know what it means. Now, the Obamacare Survival Guide by Nick Tate gives you the shocking facts about this law. It's a step-by-step guide on how you can protect yourself. Already the New York Times bestseller, every American needs to get the Obamacare Survival Guide and find out about the new taxes, hidden fees, fines, Medicare changes, business rules, and why doctor shortages are likely. Donald Trump says the Obamacare Survival Guide is a must-read for anyone worried about getting good health care for themselves or their employees. So get the Obamacare Survival Guide. It's at bookstores, or get our special offer at Obamacare911.com and you'll save $15. Go now to Obamacare911.com. Obamacare911.com.
Newsmax Magazine is proud to present a special tribute to our 40th president, Ronald Reagan. It's a very special documentary and commemorative issue of Newsmax Magazine celebrating the centennial of President Reagan's birth. First, here's a video clip from the award-winning documentary, Rendezvous with Destiny.
We're in the midst of a springtime of hope for America.
You ain't seen nothing yet.
Impulses of an evil empire.
Tear down this wall.
I believe that together we can keep this rendezvous with destiny.
In the next several minutes, you will learn things about President Ronald Reagan that you've never seen, heard, or read before. Welcome to today's special Newsmax event celebrating the life and legacy of President Reagan. During this historic presentation, we will commemorate President Reagan's storied life. We'll revisit his 2 terms in office and recollect his proudest achievements and greatest challenges. Ronald Reagan's life reads like a fairy tale of success stories. He was an accomplished athlete, an honored veteran, a famous actor, the governor of California, and of course, our nation's 40th president.
He called himself a citizen politician and only entered politics when he warned government was gaining too much power. By then he was age 54. With a successful career behind him. Twice elected President of the United States, Ronald Wilson Reagan was a contradiction to some. Once a Democrat, then a Republican. A champion of smaller government whose own government grew. A fiscal conservative who failed to balance the budget. His critics mistook his affability for weakness, but behind the smile and the charm existed an extraordinary leader with unique skills and bold and revolutionary ideas.
We only had time to share just a few of the top defining moments in Ronald Reagan's presidency, but you'll get to see them all in Rendezvous with Destiny. By the way, the president's close relationship with the Pope is especially fascinating. You'll also learn how dealing with an alcoholic father helped shape Reagan's ability to negotiate. And if you ever wondered what the leader of the free world likes to get for the holidays, well, you'll find that out as well. So let's review today in this free offer. We are sending you a copy of Ronald Reagan, Rendezvous with Destiny, and the collector's limited edition of our issue commemorating the 100th anniversary of President Reagan's birth.
Right now, when you subscribe to Newsmax Magazine, you can own both the DVD and receive the special Reagan 100th Birthday Commemorative Edition. That's $25 in bonus gifts when you subscribe. Go to newsmax.com/Reagan13 to subscribe today. Join the millions who read Newsmax Magazine every month.
Microphones hot. Satellite link established. Studio lights illuminated. Cameras rolling. Audio and video encoders firing ones and zeros. Internet stream is streaming. The most technology advanced radio show is on the air. Here's the captain of this enterprise, Steve Malzberg.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we told you about the breaking news that the U.S. Has banned certain carry-on items on flights from the U.S. to Russia for the duration of the Russian Olympics. Joining us now to weigh in on a variety of issues is our friend, Lieutenant Colonel Ralph Peters, Fox News strategic analyst and author, best-selling author of so many great books, including Hell or Richmond. Hello, sir.
Hey, great to speak to you again, Steve.
Always great to talk to you.
I'll tell you, banning toothpaste doesn't help.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. I mean, first of all, these are flights from the U.S. to Russia. The Olympics are technically underway with the preliminary trials. The opening ceremonies are already going to start, I believe, tonight or tomorrow. So is it too little, too late is what I was going to ask you.
Well, I don't know that it's too late. And rather than too little, I think it's on the verge of being too much. I mean, when the underwear bomber tried to blow up a plane, did we ban people wearing underwear? I mean, I almost feel that we have to be more realistic and accept the fact that in the real world there is some risk. Air travel is amazingly safe. I want inspection to continue. I want the TSA to do its job. But, at some point, we've got to stop trying to fight terrorism by humiliating law-abiding citizens.
That's a good point. That is a very good point. How did this come about, do you think? Do you think this is something Russia asked for?
No. Russia's, for all the good face people are trying to put on it, Russia has been very uncooperative on security matters in this Olympics. It's like Dr. Strangelove. They're afraid we'll see the big board. The Russian paranoia, and spent a lot of time there, and Russian paranoia is absolutely without bound, without any bottom to it. And we genuinely would like to help on security. And there's been some limited cooperation, information sharing, but precious little. And so the short answer to your question is this toothpaste stuff, to me, clearly came from intercepted intelligence, whether online or a phone conversation, the stuff that NSA does and gets criticized for.
Yeah, no, very, very true. All right, let's move on to what's going on in Syria and the missed deadline by the Assad regime to hand over a large portion of their chemical weapons. It's come and it's gone. And yesterday, Jay Carney basically said, well, we have every confidence that Syria will live up to their agreement. And the Russians, our good friend the Russians, by the way, they're in on this. And, we couldn't be prouder to be working with them. Just the whole thing is just pathetic.
Well, Steve, the Bernie Madoff rule of being a successful con man is pick somebody who wants to be conned.
Yeah.
And the Syrians and Russians and Iranians knew Obama wanted to be conned. He and Kerry had made their statements about Assad has to go and we would use air power. And Obama suddenly realized that, whoa, I don't really want to do that. And so when the chemical weapons allegations came up, it was a perfect opportunity for the Syrians and Russians to do a bait and switch. Say, well, no, let's not talk about all those dead civilians. And by the way, it's about 136,000 dead now, the estimate runs. They say, no, that doesn't. Well, Assad needs to give up his chemical weapons. He'll give you the chemical weapons. And Obama and Kerry just absolutely forgot about the massacres, and where they were so delighted, like kids with a new puppy. Oh, Assad's going to give up his chemical weapons. And so they signed on to that deal. All the chemical weapons evacuation and destruction apparatus is in place. And guess what? Assad isn't giving up his chemical weapons. I mean, it's just, we are seen as so weak, so pathetic under Obama. Now, I don't believe that war is the answer to everything. That's, I think we should have been out of Afghanistan long ago and let the Taliban hang cartside. But there are times when a U.S. president makes threats, he's got to live up to at least some of them. I mean, Obama's a Goldilocks. Is the porridge too hot? Is the porridge too cold? And as I said before, pitting Obama against Bashar Assad in Syria is like pitting Goldilocks against Jack the Ripper.
We're talking to Ralph Peters here on the Steve Malzberg Show, Fox News strategic analyst, best-selling author, his latest Hell or Richmond. Let me ask you about something that caught my eye today. And the Taliban claims to have captured, and it looks like they have, a U.S. dog of war. Now, I could only imagine that you're familiar with those wonderful animals. And when I looked at that picture of this dog that, your heart breaks for it because it's a lost dog in a sense, and it's in enemy hands, and these people are capable of anything. I literally couldn't look at it because I have a dog, and my heart was breaking.
Well, look, I certainly care about dogs. but you're going to have dog casualties too. And I got to tell you on this one, I can't get as excited about as a dog as I do about wounded and dead Americans.
No, I'm not trying to make a comparison.
No, I know that. I know that, Steve. But I'm saying, look, war, bad things happen.
Yeah.
The Taliban caught a dog.
I know.
We'll send them some Alpo. I mean, I'm sorry, that's one I can't get wired up about.
Okay, that's certainly fair enough. Fair enough. Go, you're entitled to your opinion and me mine. Let me ask you this: today, the president at the National Prayer Breakfast decided to mention a couple of our prisoners, including the pastor Abedini, who's held in Iran, and one of the gentlemen who's held in North Korea. But concentrating on the pastor and the two other Americans held in Iran that we know of, I mean, wasn't his opportunity to bring that up at the bargaining table with the Iranians before we put our name on the dotted line?
Sure it was. And any sensible person would have brought it up. It's like when you buy a car. You say, come on, you can throw those mats in for free. But the diplomats I've dealt with diplomats, in and out of embassies, and their position, the American diplomat's position is, well, we have to keep the negotiations clean. We have to concentrate on one thing. We can't tie this up with all sorts of extraneous matters. And frankly, to our diplomats, beyond the verbiage, those prisoners are extraneous matter. They want to deal with Iran, and even the deal with Iran. I mean, Iran gave up virtually nothing. We've been sending them checks, $500 million recently, and you know what? The Iranians are just having a great time with this because we have actually we're in a spat now with the French, because as soon as Obama agreed to loosen these few sanctions that are being loosened, the French sent 106 trade representatives and union leaders to Tehran to prepare deals with Iran. The Chinese have been there. International businessmen from the EU throughout the world have been flocking to Tehran to have signature-ready contracts for when the rest of the sanctions go. Obama, once the rule with sanctions is if you've got strict sanctions in place, once you start loosening them, you can't tighten them back up. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah, no,
Obama has blown this entirely.
Yep. Hey, Ralph, always great to talk to you, my friend. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Steve.
Take care. Ralph Peters, ladies and gentlemen, Fox News strategic analyst and author of Hell or Richmond, here on the Steve Malzberg Show. When we come back, Pulitzer Prize-winning columnist for the L.A. Times, Michael Hiltzig, will join us, and he's written a piece about how this Congressional Budget Office report on Obamacare, it's all good. It's good for the country. In fact, Obamacare is good for the country. I think we might go at it a little bit. Who knows? We'll talk about it, but we'll end as friends, as always, right here on the Steve Malzberg Show, Newsmax TV and radio.